Hi, I'm Elizabeth Noyce, and you're listening to Supergirl Radio.
I think the CW are just trying to win the time slot war with Supergirl Radio.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom. Because
Really? She looks like a boss in this coat.
Is Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the CW Supergirl TV series and the character of Kara Zor-El. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And for this episode of the podcast, we are live and wired and a little bit late, but that's okay. It's my fault. To discuss and review the Supergirl Season 6 episode titled The Gauntlet. If you can believe it, I was just rushing home from a Bible study where we talked about David and Goliath, which is very relevant to this week's episode of
Synergy.
Supergirl. So we will talk about that. So just so happened that this week we were doing a study on the life of King David, and just so happens David and Goliath, the story of the 9-foot, 9-inch tall giant was this week. So we will get into that. And so I guess we don't really have any news. There was some news that came out in terms of interviews, but it's a huge spoiler, and I'm already still trying to like calm myself down.
We're trying
about
to process it. We're going through like a lot of phases and stages, maybe.
Yeah. So I just to preserve the surprise or the frustration that might come with that spoiler,
surprise and or frustration.
So to preserve that for the blissfully ignorant at this point, we won't talk about it. But there was a big thing that came out. If you are curious, it was in EW.com and all that kind of stuff. But we're not going to talk about that here because it's a huge spoiler. So we are just going to get to talking about this week's episode, which was titled The Gauntlet. So here is the official description. Quote, Supergirl and Team race Nixley for control of a magical totem that controls courage. Supergirl and Nixley battle and each get a piece of the totem, but learn the first person to pass the test of courage will gain control of the entire thing. Meanwhile, Lena is still struggling to make sense of her newfound gift, unquote. And I like that they use the word newfound. Like Newfoundland.
Like, our friend Veronica, she is really like pulling out all the stops now. She was kind of phoning in some of the other descriptions, but now she's like, this one's gonna have layers.
Yeah, so it was a good description this week. So we I think we should start talking about something that's relevant to my interests, because not to make this all about me, but it's of interest to me. And I brought some friends with me, one of which we're going to have on the podcast, and it's one of our friends. So we have Dr. Nicole Green with us tonight to speak to some of the science aspects of this episode. And I also brought a museum friend of mine via a video clip that we'll play to give a perspective on the museums. I also have an email from the director of the Alabama Museum of Natural History, who actually taught me something. And I couldn't bring it with me, but I also heard from one of my other museum colleagues who just sent me a voice message. Why is there a lady with an iguana in the museum? So that was that was Lindsay's question to me after I made them all watch the episode to give me their perspectives. So we are going to talk about some of the museum things, I think, right up front, because I work in museums in my day-to-day job outside of Supergirl Radio. I am housed in museums, so I was very. I mean, they've had museums on the show before, but this one had quite a bit of time in the museum with an artifact, actually. So Morgan and Nicole, I guess we'll start with Morgan. So what did you think about the search for the totem of courage? I almost said I wanted to say curation, but it came out at the same time as courage. So they were looking
Keurig, like the coffee maker.
Keurig. But that's a different artifact in the future. They'll have artifacts of Keurig coffee makers. But Morgan, what did you think about their search for the totem of courage?
You know what? We've gotten to the MacGuffin portion of the season. I said this, I think the last time or the time before that on Legends we call this like the Rubik's Cube. Like they're searching for the different parts of the Rubik's Cube. And last season on Legends they didn't do it, so I guess it kind of like transferred over to Supergirl. And as a a start to their search for the Rubik's Cube, I think that this was a solid first outing. I think it's kind of like I'm assuming this is like a template of how these episodes are going to go. Like they get the thing, but there's like a test involved, and somehow involves like whatever attribute that is being that is associated with the what are they called, totems?
Yeah, because they're all I'm getting totem and paragon mixed in my head because they're basically the same thing.
It's the same thing. I'm still mad about it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let that go.
Yeah, totems. Yeah.
Which again, there was a whole season of Legends that was like kind of devoted to totems, but it's okay. That's just they're trying to throw me off, and you know what? It can't be done. Supergirl, it cannot be done. So, they're all called the same thing as the paragons. It's like totems from Legend. It's fine. I'm still here. I'm still sort of vaguely following what's happening. Yeah, I'm like the MacGuffin plot is a little bit like word salad to me at the moment. It's just like somebody threw some of those magnets onto a fridge, and it's like, and then we have to find the courage totem at the museum. It's like, okay, sure, there's an iguana there, it turns into a dragon. None of that makes sense, but all right. So I mean, the idea of like going through a challenge is kind of fun because it gives like the episode some setup, and I feel like, or some structure. I feel like these episodes have been all over the place recently. Like we had last week was kind of that like powerful emotional episode with Kelly, but the week before that there was a cat playing with a like heat vision lasers. So I mean, this one to me was again kind of like when we talked the last time about the tonal swings in the season. It's like again we've swung to the wacky part of the season, and like it's just been kind of up and down is in terms of that. But honestly, I kind of like the wacky stuff, so I didn't hate it. I still don't understand, like when they get all the totems together and then she gets ultimate power, she becomes Captain Planet.
Yes,
with their powers combined. I just want to be the first person to call this storyline very Harry Potter-ish.
It is.
I know it's common. I just want it to be the first one through that gate.
They had Dementors. They basically have Horcruxes, and at the end of the episode, the emotional I don't know, would that be like a psychic connection between Supergirl and Nixley? That's straight out of Harry Potter.
I was waiting for like Supergirl to get like a lightning bolt scar on her forehead and be like, oh, it hurts.
Well, they did talk about Project Bolt.
Yeah, that's true.
In this episode,
so we're pretty close.
So it's very, very close. Somebody really loves Harry Potter. I keep waiting for Alex or Kara to mention, like, hey, this sort of is like Harry Potter, because they love Harry Potter. They've talked about Harry Potter on the show before.
I feel like somebody should have made this connection and been like, hey, you know what? We're going to do this, so we might as well underline it. Like, we all know what's happening. This is Harry Potter. We've become Harry Potter.
And now they had
the Dementors early this season.
In the group.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
That's true. And if this means that Lena gets to go to Hogwarts, let me say that I'm on board. If like Hagrid comes through and is like, "You're a wizard, Lena," I'm in. She's already got the accent for it, creeping out every other scene. So
yeah, she's ready to go. Just put some robes on her, give her a wand,
now,
have her walk through the Scottish wilderness. Yeah,
Lena's a Slytherin, right? Like I think that's probably undisputed.
Yeah, she's ambitious.
Or a Ravenclaw. I don't know.
She could be.
Yes.
I have I have no skin in this game, but I feel like that's a thing that people are like, you're an academic, therefore you have to be a Ravenclaw, and then it always spawns a lot of debate. And I personally don't care that much, but I've been party to many of these conversations.
How dare you have not spent a lot of mental energy on this?
Yeah, so I do agree with you, Morgan. I think this is going to be the template for how they're going to do the rest of the season. I guess every episode from now on is going to be dedicated to a search for the totem.
Now, how many totems were there?
Oh, geez. Do we have to go back and list those out?
Earth, wind, fire.
Well, there was love, and there's
love.
Courage, dream, something or other.
Oh, yeah, dreams was one of them.
Let me look that up. I have it in
Honor.
my Google Docs.
I think honor, yeah. I think
Truth?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
So 7: truth, destiny, love, dreams, hope, humanity, and courage.
Now, how many episodes do we have left? And so there's 7 of them, right?
This was 13. So that's gonna line up for probably one each episode. Yeah. So I think that's probably. Do you think we're gonna end on hope? I feel like.
I mean, what other one are we going to end on? What other one is going to allow her to give that speech on television? I think we know where we're ending.
Can't end a Supergirl TV show without an episode just called Hope. What if it's just Hope?
What if it ends on dreams and it turns out that the whole series was just a dream that Dreamer had?
I would be so mad.
Stay elsewhere.
No.
Although, I don't know. Would I be so mad? Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe,
I mean, it was all a dream, Rebecca.
Maybe I'd be like, oh, we can start over. We can start fresh now.
Maybe this whole podcast was just all a dream.
What if we are just in some simulation with the podcast,
possible.
and we wake up every morning and we think we do this podcast? It's just strange.
More questioning of reality is what you're creating here for me.
Exactly.
I'm already struggling with the religion and the magic and the science. I don't need simulations.
So, Nicole, what did you think about the search for the totem? Because it did involve scientists, inventions, and people in lab coats. What was your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I enjoyed it. I'm really enjoying the magic storyline with the imps. I just want to put that out there before I say anything negative about magic. I think because they hit us hard up front with Vita and the hologram, where Lena brought up, she was like, I think there's a scientific explanation to what's happening to me. I just need to find it. So I was like, I'm going to put that to the side and come back to that later. But when everybody else was watching the museum sequence, I was sitting there going, I think this is an institute. This is a research institute, not a museum. That's not how this works. And so I spent most of my time doing that, but I did really enjoy the opening with Dr. Lar, where she got like in 1990s style grant rejection in an envelope. And she like dramatically crumpled it up. And I was like, that seems very authentic. That's something that all of us have done, or like angrily slammed a keyboard because we live in in an age where we get those by electronic distribution now.
It's 2021. It would have been. I think they could have tied it to the Harry Potter theme if an owl had dropped off that letter.
Yes, why not? Why not? That feels like more fun than the way we're normally rejected. But I thought it was funny that she was just like, "This is Frank's fault," and then we cut away, and we didn't see Frank for a while.
Amazing.
But yeah, and then I think I was on the same wavelength as Rebecca. We talked about this a little bit on Twitter of like, what is this exhibit? This is also not a science exhibit. If you go look up like the Science and Industry Museum in Chicago, which is incredible, would recommend to everybody if you have been. It's like a NASA exhibit. It's like go into the cell, like microscopic level. Like it's not, let's look at biblical relics, because that's not the place for that.
Well, I did speak to my friend Lindsay, who is an archaeologist by trade, and she now works at Mountville Archaeological Park. And she was telling me, because I was asking her about that. What do you think about David's slingshot? And we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. But I was asking her about that, about the exhibit and the type of museum, because it was a museum of science and technology. Well, in archaeology, a weapon would be considered technology, especially in those ancient days. So that's sort of how you can. I don't think the people who wrote this episode probably went that deep with it, but you could justify it, I think.
Okay,
I did also think,
slingshot would be a kind of technology back then.
Yeah, like tools, a focus on the evolution of tools.
Yeah. Although I think it was supposed to be like ancient Egypt was the exhibit. So that's interesting. So I don't know how ancient Egypt really could tie into the Museum of Science and Technology. I guess the technology part would be in there with the slingshot, but yeah. So it's interesting you bring up the museums, Nicole. Because I did reach out to I'm just gonna call them for now our museum consultants, because we have legal consultants, we have our science consultant with us, and so I do have some museum friends who could be considered museum consultants. So I asked a few of my colleagues to watch the episode and give me some feedback on it. And one of them, my friend Allie, who is great. Allie is the best. She recorded a short little video for me. It's a couple of minutes long, but she explained some of her thoughts as she watched the episode, and she'll explain that she doesn't watch the show very much, so she had a lot of questions outside of the museum stuff.
Yes.
But we'll hear from Allie, and then we'll come back and I have more museum thoughts. This is going to be a very museum heavy episode mixed in with some science. So we'll get to Allie and we'll come back.
Hi, my name's Allie, and I used to work in a museum for a few years. And Rebecca asked me to watch the most recent episode of Supergirl to check out the museum aspects of the episode. I wore my special earrings for this video. See, look, dinosaurs, robots, all sorts of museum good stuff. I will say this was maybe only my second, maybe third episode of Supergirl that I'd ever seen. So initially a lot of my comments had to deal with the show itself, primarily like, whoa, that is a green person. It's probably the first thought that I had. But as far as the museum stuff goes, there wasn't a ton of scenes in the museum, but the ones that were there, I guess the first thing I thought was the artifact itself. The slingshot, it just made me wonder how, like, what temperature and like climate or environmental controls they used to keep that, if it were, let's say, the wooden slingshot that they say was used in the David and Goliath story. I was just curious as to like what environmental controls they had in the pillar cases that they were using. The second thing I thought was that there were like a lot of people in lab coats, and I don't know that I have ever seen that many people in lab coats in, well, the museum that I worked in, but also like any museum that I had visited before and seen even behind the scenes stuff for. So it kind of made me wonder if maybe I was like working in the wrong museum. Just kidding. I wasn't. But lab coats are cool, I guess, is really what it came down to. It seemed to me like it was a big, maybe like research firm first with like with maybe public viewing spaces. But then they had all those artifacts. So there has been a collection space. I don't know. I didn't quite understand. The other thing that I thought was, wow, it must be really nice to have a coffee shop in your museum. That's pretty cool. I know that some places have coffee shops, but it was like a really nice coffee shop, and that was kind of nifty. And then I think one of the bigger questions that I had was like, why does that woman have an iguana on the floor for the museum? I realized it played a role later in the episode, but like, first off, why does that lady have an iguana? Pretty big question. And as far as the museum, like, exhibit itself goes, I did like the way that they had like the little pedestal cases, and there were a couple of pedestal cases. I liked that as far as like an exhibit type, because it was nice. People could walk all the way around them. I enjoyed that. They had 8 minutes of a shift change to, steal the artifact. Was interesting to me too. But again, maybe it was just I haven't been exposed to museums where shift changes are so precise. That honestly, that could be it. But I think my biggest takeaway was that it was a lot of fun and a great episode, and I have more questions coming out of it than I had going in, which I think is probably the way that it should be. But most of the questions I have are about the Supergirl universe, so I think that's just a sign that I need to listen to this podcast a little bit more so I can find out more things. All right, thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Well, thank you, Allie Sorley, for being part of Supergirl Radio and submitting that video response and a quick little review from a museum professional. There are a couple of things I wanted to respond to in that video. So she mentioned the shift change situation. This is new to me because for 14 years, I worked in the corporate world. And so we did have tight shift changes like that, where if 2:30 your shift was over, you would leave and you'd go home. In academia, which is the museums that we work in, we're part of a university system. It's pretty loosey goosey. Like you can leave early if you want to. You can come in late if you want to. Academia is a completely different world. So I guess it would depend if the museum was part of a university system in National City that would determine how shifts were done. Also, the iguana situation. So at the Alabama Museum of Natural History, we have a bug room where there are live insects that people use for research and education. And from what I understand, you have to have a permit for that kind of thing. You can't just have insects roaming around the museum. Even with our live beehive, it's contained so that the bees aren't just flying around the museum.
Oh God,
that would be bad. So for a lady to just be walking around with a live iguana just in her arms without it being in a case or something,
maybe it's just her friend.
I guess it was a little weird. Everyone in my museum circle clocked that pretty fast. Like, why? Also, why was the iguana even relevant? This was an exhibit about ancient Egypt, and
I just like the completely unexplained nature of the iguana. Like, why does the iguana exist? Where did the iguana come from? Why is he there? We may never know.
We will never know. So maybe that's that's the culture at the Museum of Science and Technology. Bring your iguana if you want to. It's like when people can bring their dogs into a restaurant. You could just bring your iguanas in. Also, just really quickly before I get to some of I guess Nicole. Do you have any thoughts? Because I think Allie mentioned a lot of lab coats and things like that. So what are your thoughts on a lot of lab coats in the museums?
I want to say one thing about the iguana before we move on.
Oh, yes, please.
Because
let's only talk about the iguana.
Or why not? I'm not going to actually talk about the iguana. I want to talk about writing, because I feel like this is what's bothered me some about this season, is that they clearly were like, we want to have a dragon fighting scene. And so then they have to they're trying to backtrack to make that a reasonable thing to have happen, except it's not, which is how we end up with a woman carrying around an iguana openly against animal protocols in the middle of a natural history exhibit.
I have to say, Not Sure has a good theory in the comments, and it's that actually iguanas get in free on Tuesdays. And I think maybe that's something that the museum is doing to try to get more people. They're like, those iguana people, they're gonna flock in here if we let old Herbert come in for free. I don't know.
It's a great promotion. It works. I'd go visit. I guess on lab coats, I'll say that I was kind of laughing this week because I knew it was going to be probably a science heavy week. And it just so happens that I've been doing for the last week all of my safety training updating, which is an exciting thing that happens every year and also every 3 years for certain things. And I had to find my lab coat so that I did not get in trouble during our review, because you need it for one thing that we do in the lab. So we don't wear lab coats very often.
Oh, interesting.
Because most of the things that we work with are basically either soaps or solutions that are saline to keep tissue alive. So it's not actually required much for us, but every time they go to take a picture for the university, you bet they're like, excuse me, could you actually put on a lab coat so people know you're a scientist? And I was like, oh, is that how it works? Don't tell the field biologist out in the prairie or anything. They are not wearing lab coats.
They're like, these are Grey's Anatomy rules, and if you don't have the lab coats on, how will we know?
Yeah, so I was like, okay, that's a lot of lab coats. I mean, they were very nice. It seemed like they were probably like monogrammed and like possibly tailored for them. Like, I feel like you would go to the store when you got there and you got like your 3 lab coats. That's what happens at fancy institutes, but not at a public institution. We get like a white coat that's like stained with weird solutions a little bit on the sleeves and it's been in a drawer for a while. But yeah, we can talk about this later, but it did make me laugh that there was like all of this PPE. And then I was going through this in my lab this week. And then I was like, Lena's going to do something ridiculous. And then she didn't. She was like fully in lab appropriate clothing the whole episode. What a letdown.
You know what? She's a legend. She zigs when you think she's gonna zag, and that's really the essence of Boardroom or Ballroom. I think is like you can never pin her down.
I have no idea what's going on.
We'll have more feedback about Lena's new wardrobe choices that she's experiencing now that she's poor. So that's a new thing for Lena. I just wanted to get to Rogue Artist's comment real quick. As a past security guard at the University Museum, we had very strict shift changes. As a craftsperson, yeah, it's not a strict change. That's interesting. It probably depends on each museum and the culture there. But the world of academia is such a different thing that I've experienced in my life. So that was kind of tough to get used to. I was like, you could just leave whatever you want to. Like that's okay. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. All right. So those are the benefits, I guess, of working in academia. And if you all will humor me, because I think maybe this will speak to something that Nicole will be interested in. So I also reached out to Dr. John Friel, who's the director of the Alabama Museum of Natural History, and he gave me some comments. The first one is that he says, I quote, "I found the statement that the museum's grants department canceled funding odd, as most grants to museum staff are from external funding agencies, not for within museums themselves." So museums, if people don't know, have to apply for grants to get money to fund things like exhibits. So that stuck out to him. I don't know, Nicole, is that something that you ever deal with grants and things like that?
Oh, all you do as a scientist after you get out of grad school essentially is worry about funding and stress about that and beg people for money. So yeah, I would say most of the science, like all the labs that I've worked in are heavily externally funded by organizations like the National Institutes of Health or the National Science Foundation. Occasionally there'll be like a private, like more of like a charitable foundation like American Cancer Society or American Heart Association that will fund the kind of research we do. So yeah, we're bound by the same rules of like, you have to apply. There's a extensive review process. Then you get not a physical letter, but some notification that you may or may not receive funding. And then there's a waiting period until you get that. And then it's usually doled out over several years, depending on the kind of grant.
Yeah, so Dr. Friel clocked that pretty quickly. He also wrote, quote, "Everyone was wearing lab coats in the museum's back of house scenes. It looked more like an R&D, a research and development department at a corporation rather than a museum research department." So I think that, Nicole, you brought that earlier with the institution angle. So that was something that he mentioned. He also wrote, quote, "In the scene where the artifact was stolen, there was more security staff responding than I have ever seen in a public museum space." So they did respond to Nixley's intrusion and theft there. And then he ends with something that was very eye-opening for me. And we'll get into this really quickly. We won't spend a ton of time on this, but I feel like it's very important and we should get into it. He writes, quote, "Finally, did you catch the claim that the slingshot was the one David used to slay Goliath? In the biblical story, David uses a sling, not a sling shot," unquote. And Dr. Friel is 100%. The actual biblical narrative does not say slingshot. It says sling. And I've been going to churches my entire life, and I will not say how old I am to give that away because I'm a very old lady now. But no one has ever explained that to me. And I've always just in my mind have envisioned a slingshot. I imagine it's because of some interpretation or adaptation that I've seen, or a drawing or an illustration or something like that.
Like a little boop.
Yeah, and I think it's a common misperception, and one that I had. And so when Dr. Friel mentioned that, I was like, is there a difference? So I actually did look it up. And so there are slingshots, but there are also things called shepherd slings. And so I'll show you the difference here. So the bottom image is the David's slingshot on the show, and the top two images are actual slings. So these are the shepherd slings. So you would put the stone in the little pouch there, and you would sort of like you would, kind of whip it around your head or on your side, to gain momentum. Some people do this thing. I watched all these like tutorials on shepherd slings to prepare for this episode because I was so interested in how this works now. And some people will do this, what they call a figure 8 thing, where they'll gain momentum to fling the rock. And it actually is really powerful. It can break the speed of sound, and you can hear like the little thing crack, and it can mess you up. And so it actually makes a lot of sense that David would have used that to slay lions and bears, like it talks about in the scripture when he's out with the sheep, and why he was pretty confident that he could take down a 9-foot, 9-inch giant because he'd been messing with bears and lions. But I thought that was very interesting that the shepherd sling is a very ancient weapon that I think is still used in parts of the world today. So the show is not that I would assume that it should be biblically accurate, because I would not think that those people would really even attempt to be accurate to the biblical narrative. But I just thought that was interesting. Also worth noting, I have just so happens been in a small group Bible study studying the life of King David, and my Bible study, this is the booklet. I just want to show people. I'll go full screen so you can see it. There's a slingshot on here. So even in my church, I'm calling my church out because we need to fix this. We need to correct this notion and teach it correctly. Even here in this study is a slingshot and not a shepherd's sling. So if you are like me and you were under the impression that it was a slingshot, like the show, you're probably under that impression because things like Supergirl have portrayed it as a slingshot. It's not. It's a shepherd sling. So I have clips, video links in the video description as well. I'll put it in the audio show notes for the audio podcast if you want to see people sling those things around. I mean, they can get pretty accurate if they practice long enough. So it's pretty interesting. So if you actually read the story of David and Goliath in the biblical text, it does say sling. It doesn't say slingshot. So I just wanted to point that out and make sure everybody knew the correct usage of it.
What I like is that we now have like a fun fact to like pull out at parties. Like if somebody's like, oh, the story about David and Goliath, and we're like, excuse me, I just wanted to correct you that like it wasn't a slingshot, it was a sling. And hold on, let me tell you all about the shepherd sling. And listen, I guarantee you that you are going to be the most popular person at that party. People are going to flock to hear you explain the difference between a slingshot and a shepherd sling. I guarantee it.
I think it's interesting. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew.
I want to look up those videos of the people like whipping it over their heads and like throwing it out.
I don't think I would ever try it because I would hurt myself.
Oh, that sounds dangerous. That sounds like a thing that I would like very much injure myself on.
But it is a weapon. It could be used to really knock people out or knock animals out if you were fighting, kind of defending yourself against an animal. I also thought it was interesting. The exhibit sign on the artifact read, let's see, it said, quote, referenced in the first book of Samuel 17:34 through 36. And I actually went in there. It is, and this is a nitpick thing for me. It is chapter 17 of 1 Samuel, but in those verses, I don't think it references the sling at all. The sling is mentioned a couple of times in other verses, but not in the verses that they referenced on the
Nope.
exhibit sign. So that
close.
seemed strange to me. If you were going to put a reference on the artifact, you might want to reference the actual verses in which the artifact was referenced.
But it's also that they were like so close to getting the right thing, but then so far away.
Yeah, it was very strange to me. So I learned quite
Go
a
that
bit.
extra mile, you know.
I learned quite a bit this week. Thank you, Supergirl TV series, for getting it wrong so that I could then learn the correct thing. And I made sure that my Bible study knew the correct the correct difference between slingshot and shepherd sling. So I just wanted to make sure that was corrected on the record here as well.
I feel like I'm learning a lot from this particular podcast episode. Like they're gonna be like, Morgan, what was that episode about? I'm like, hold on, I've got grant funding things to tell you. I got lab coat things to tell you. I got iguana things to tell you. And don't even get me started on the slingshot. Like, like what happened in the plot? Oh, I don't know. I don't remember. I do remember the slingshot though.
So that was quite interesting with that specific artifact. So I am curious, Dr. Nicole, what did you think about Beatrice Lar, Dr. Lar? Because I was personally a little offended that they had a character with the last name Lar on the Supergirl TV series, and it was not Leslie Lar.
How dare they?
I am so offended by that. But I'm curious about your thoughts on Dr. Lar as a scientist and what she was doing in the episode.
Yeah, I think this is another one of those, like, it was so close, but not what we wanted. This is what happened with her. I think her temperament around getting bad news as a scientist was pretty spot on. I think that's pretty classic that you like look around and you see someone like throwing something down a little angrily because something didn't work. We're just a bunch of like frustrated, on edge people, especially nowadays. I thought it was great that they made her background was like physics and electrical engineering, I think. If I'm remembering from that very brief screenshot I saw. So I thought it was nice that they went out of the way to put her in a discipline that is an area where women are traditionally underrepresented. I don't know if anybody caught that or cared about it, but physics and engineering is an area where women still are have fairly low representation. So I liked that. I thought she did a lot of questionable scientific things after she was enchanted by the totem or had that fifth dimensional energy surge. I loved the fist fight at the coffee place. That was really fun.
So funny.
This is another really sexy science topic we can talk about. Intellectual property. I was tweeting about this during the episode. Because the whole premise was that it seemed like Frank had backed out of the project because it was too dangerous. And so that was in some way connected to the funding getting stripped by the museum, if I'm remembering right. So she goes to like confront Frank at the coffee shop. And he is supposedly just in his bag, unsecured, carrying a hard drive that she's just going to take from him. And this is supposed to contain these really highly sensitive, dangerous plans for this. I don't remember, something ionizer, whatever it is, the thing that harnessed lightning. And I just want to say that again, like we have really strict rules around it, especially if it's a government entity. Well, and it might even be more so with a private corporation if you have like an industry collaboration, because they like really invest in that and they own everything. So like if you're a scientist, you work somewhere, the intellectual property is owned in part by the university, and like in part I mean like mostly owned by whoever you work for. And we have really serious rules about like, especially if it's like government tax funded research, it has to be on a secure server. You have to constantly update it. Or as my PI likes to tell us, we're defrauding the government. So they take us really seriously. So you couldn't just have like a hard drive with only that data on it walking around. That's not how it would exist. So I was like, again, it felt like you wanted to have like a fist fight in a coffee house with a bunch of scientists, which was fun, but the way you got there made no sense. So
yeah, you can't just destroy the stuff on the hard drive related to a project that was going. Like you can't, you just can't do that. Yeah. So I just want to mention in the chat, people were referencing the name of Dr. Lar. Lara says the character was named after Bert Lahr, the Cowardly Lion from the Wizard of Oz. And Electra WWF points out the fun fact that Dr. Lahr was played by Jessie Rast's real life wife. So she got to get in there and play around just as much as Jessie does. So that was kind of cool for Dr. Lahr. Morgan, did you have any thoughts about Dr. Lahr and some of the sciencey things going on in the episode?
I mean, I appreciated that she immediately just blamed Frank. Like, yes, it was Frank's fault. Frank was doing this. No, I thought that to Nicole's point, yeah, they had an idea of a scene that they wanted. It's going to be a brawl in a coffee shop with some scientists, and there was going to be an iguana. Why? Don't know. And he was going to become like a dragon, and he was going to breathe fire. And they said, okay, how do we get to that? And somebody was just like, oh, I don't know, the scientists in the museum were doing, this. And there was an exhibit, and the iguana was there because science and stuff. And everybody was like, solid. I love it.
Nailed it.
I love it.
Nailed it.
You conceptualized it. You brought me there. You brought me to that scene. And then you're in the scene. You're like, why is there an iguana? But I did like her energy was like truly chaotic. Like, I don't know, like things were just not going right for her. And then when she got that courage, like she was like, listen, I'm going to give you the what for. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. And like, I kind of appreciated that. She was like, listen, I'm holding a lot of stuff inside about like how you just like gave up on this very dangerous project. And somehow that lost us our funding because they're gonna drop out once Frank is out, because everybody knows that Frank is the real party. Like, everybody wants in on whatever Frank is doing. And so once he was like, no, dude, this is gonna like blow up the city, they were like, oh, well, you know what? If Frank's not gonna be there, Frank always brings the best wine coolers to the party. Frank's always got the best tidbits about slingshots. We're not funding anymore. So I'm glad that she stood up to Frank, who I imagine is like, like the popular kid in the museum. Everybody wants to do what Frank is doing. That's how he gets the funding so easily. And I'm glad that she stood up to him. I'm less glad that she, did all the stuff with the lightning that almost burnt down.
She did try to harness lightning. And
but listen, she had an idea. And she was and she believed in herself, and she had the courage of her convictions,
and it did work.
Correct, and it worked too well. Frank would say too well, probably, but would she? I don't know.
Yeah, so there was a lot that Supergirl and the Super Friends had to stop in this episode. And I guess one of the things that they
I see that we have a comment in the chat. Anthony says, Kelly bouncing electricity off of a metal shield deserves some science discussion.
Dr. Nicole Green, do you have any thoughts about the use of the shield?
I mean, it's a great point. There's no reason that Kelly should be alive after that. I'm glad she is. Maybe we're also going to find out that Kelly is a witch and has magic, and that's why she can survive seemingly deadly blows by electricity. I don't know anymore what's going on the show. So I'm just going to say we learned that off camera, and Kelly she knew she was going to be safe. And so it just played out then on screen, and we just aren't allowed to question it.
Yeah, Claudia points out Kelly's shield is made out of vibranium. Ooh. So I don't know. Do we think that would work?
Is vibranium?
That's not a real element, right?
A DC thing?
I don't know.
Isn't that the element from Black Panther? Am I?
Yeah, right. That's right? a Wakandan element.
It's a Wakandan element. So it's not the right.
So Claudia is just taking a guess here, I guess, like just pulling out something from another universe.
By the way, when you Google vibranium, it asks you if you want to Google vibranium versus adamantium. So I just wanted to put that out there.
All right, so even with Claudia's guesstimation there, we still don't know why the shield, the Guardian shield, would work like that. Hagelblast has a good point in there. Maybe nth metal. Okay. Brainy did help with her Guardian look, so maybe he employed some nth metal because he knew about that from his, I think, Legion of Superheroes experience. So maybe he knew about nth metal and used that for the shield. But yeah, I don't think that was ever explained why Kelly could do that with the shield. So
She's
that
just
must
gotten
be
really good at being Guardian, you guys.
Off-screen
episode.
Supergirl is such a good show that it
I
just
love
Great
has
show.
all the details and all the facts, but we don't know them. And so one of the other things, they had to stop Dr. Lar and the lightning harnessing, but then also they had to stop Nixley, who was also using a slingshot, an incorrect artifact, an inaccurate artifact, but half of the slingshot that they say David used to slay Goliath, even though that's not biblically accurate, but I'm going to get over it. But Nixley had half of the slingshot, and she experienced the gauntlets just like Supergirl did. So Morgan, what did you think about the venturing into the gauntlet space and seeing them sort of run the gauntlet to figure out who they were and to face the times when they lacked courage?
I liked it because one of the things that they did was like when they both had the two ends and they were talking to Vita, the dumb Kryptonian witch.
She was the dumb one. Allura said she was not very smart, and they had Lena learning from the dumbest Kryptonian witch. That can't go well.
I hope that she comes back and that she does some truly, truly dumb stuff. And that all of Lena's magic is just like a little bit off because she's learning it from
That's
the dumbest.
That's not a good mentor. Not a good
the
magical
dumbest
mentor.
Kryptonian witch. But Vito is like, oh, you're gonna have to like go deep into yourself and like face your biggest fears. And I was like, are you saying that we're gonna have some character stuff? Are you threatening me with a good time? I was like, not this show, not on this show. So I did appreciate that, like the crux of the episode was that they had to go and like face a traumatic moment or like a big moment from their past and like do over to like face their fears or like be courageous in a moment that they weren't courageous before, and like how that would teach us different things about the character. Now I think we learned more about Nixley than we did about Kara. Surprise, surprise. It's just called Supergirl. But I mean, we learned that that Nixley, even though, you know, in her tellings in the Phantom Zone, she was like, I hate my dad and I hate my brother. I'm going to kill them both. Like when she went back to that moment, she was like, I can't kill my brother because I love my brother. And I thought that that was an interesting twist on her character, that we see her as like somebody who was so deeply betrayed because of the love that she felt for her brother, and that it was by being vulnerable and telling him what he had done to her and how that had hurt her, that's how she had her courageous moment. Also, I liked seeing the fifth dimensional like realm. First off, her outfit was fire. I was like, Nixley, you're serving me all the looks and I'm loving it. I don't what that cape is it functional? Is it's attached to your necklace? I like it. It's weird. And then the background was just kind of like, it looked like it was painted, and then there was just like a really obviously fake tree in the background, and I liked that vibe too. It was kind of like they went into a restaurant, like a themed restaurant in Walt Disney World. And that gave me good vibes. I was like, I want to know more about these imps. Like, what's their deal? But the Kara stuff, I was like a little bit more confused with, because I wanted some closure, and like it felt so open-ended the way that they left her story. Again, surprise, surprise, because we got a nice arc for Nixley, you know, our villain. But our hero, what did that slingshot want her to do? And at the end of the episode, we still don't really know. Like, I think it was, you know, she made the decision that she made, which is that she needed her team back, and she needed the doctor to not be so hyped up on courage and hating Frank to help turn off that machine. Like, you're like, I guess we can't incinerate National City. I feel like she could have done that like swirly thing by herself. She is Supergirl, but you know, that's the nature of the show. But what was the courage test that she failed? They show her stop to save a guy, and I guess in the original she heard somebody ask for help, but she was so freaked out about saving the plane that she just kept going. But that wasn't it. And so we see her go back and then fail a second time, but we don't even see what that failure was that time.
She just kind of went around National City. I assume she went around like helping other people, I guess.
Oh, that was not clear in any way.
It was just light.
It was not clear, but I assumed she was doing the same thing where she was like going around and helping more people.
That makes sense.
But
I was like, what did she do? Why is this scene over? How did she fail? And I just like, I guess if you like open that sort of box of like, okay, well, here's a test and there's a right answer and there's wrong answers. It would be great to know at the end of the episode what the right answer was, but will we ever know?
Do you have a theory?
I don't know. I don't know.
Do you think she has to be vulnerable like Nixley did?
I think so. I think that's probably where they were going with it, because just saving somebody is like a thing that she does all the time. Like even Lena points it out in that couch scene. She was like, you know, you save people all the time. Like you're very courageous. And so I think it has to do with like emotional courage or emotional vulnerability, kind of like Jean had in the whole episode, which was honestly my favorite part of the whole episode. Like if we can keep emotionally supportive and present Jean,
really encouraging to everyone, just really proud of everyone.
Everybody's side. I like when he was trying to talk to the dragon. He was like, "You're doing a great job being a dragon. Let's just take it down a notch." And then that scene where she has to decide about what she's gonna do, if she's gonna like take the test again or if she's gonna, you know, give up the piece. And she looks around and like the doctor is like beating on Jean and he's like, "You're doing great." Express those emotions. I like you better than Frank too. Like I don't know. I just like emotionally present Martian Manhunter. He's now my favorite version.
So I hate to make this a sad moment because this makes me sad to think about. What if we're never gonna get the answer to why Kara failed? Because my question now is there like a gauntlet associated with all of the totems? Like now that she's past the courage thing and Nixley has the courage to, like, I guess she gets whatever energy is in the courage. Like, is that over with now? Do they not need to worry about the courage part now?
I don't know.
Do they just move on from courage?
Probably. I mean, I was worried when they said, because what did they tell her? It was like going to be a terrible emotional toll or something really dramatic. And I was like, do I really want to see Kara more traumatized in this? I thought we just did that. Like, I thought we were working through it. I thought we were going to get that therapy session with Kelly.
If it gives her a story, I will take it.
You're like, I will take that trauma.
I will take that screen time. Thank you.
Kelly just parachutes in, like in the Guardian outfit, then takes it off and is like, all right, now it's time for our session.
Yes. Oh, that'd be so great.
I thought it was going to have something to do with like the Phantom Zone. So I was really surprised when they took it down back to the pilot. And so I was like, oh, cool. It's so great to, you know, see the pilot. Remember that show? What a great time that was. They did
a really good job of recreating that. I thought so.
Yeah, they really did. Yeah, I had to ask myself a couple times. I was like, well, this is footage from the pilot, but was that footage from the pilot? Like it was. They did a really good job with that. But they're taking you all the way back to the pilot, and then they don't give you the answer, which felt like a little bit aggravating to me. Like even if it was in that final couch scene with Lena when if she had said, I think I should have done this, but by the time I figured it out, it was too late or something like that. That would have been nice. I just wanted the answer.
Yeah, I'm curious if we'll actually get that. So we'll see. Okay, so we sort of briefly mentioned Lena. So she's trying to, in this episode, come to terms with her witchy lineage, I guess is the best way to put that. So I guess Dr. Nicole, I'll start with you since you have some, I think, feelings on magic and science. So what did you think about what Lena was going through in this episode where she was trying to have to really come to terms with it and realize that maybe she could do something with magic?
I'm gonna say this in defense of Lena. This kind of got brought up 2 episodes ago now when she was in Irish Canada. She was like, I know I just saw something that I can't explain, but I still feel like there's a scientific explanation potentially like at play here, just being a good skeptical scientist looking for the proof. But I think that's reasonable. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying things like, you know, she has alien friends and she has friends who can fly. But I want to remind everybody, the car can fly as a result of her unique Kryptonian biology.
Oh,
There
true.
you go.
The Luthors have been studying for years. So Lena probably knows exactly how that works. And even though I've tried to look this up and don't think that there is any actual scientific basis to the photonucleic effect, she, like even our take the grass moment had a scientific explanation there. It was like reverse photosynthesis, basically. She like drew the sunlight out and she like healed herself. So I was like trying to think if there was any like truly like really just this has to be magic that we've seen before then. I know there was with like the world killers and the 3 Kryptonian witches, but I don't know that Lena got to see all that. And Rain's biology again was like Sam's, there was a switch in gene expression, which is my whole thing that I do. And so there was again, she could see in the blood, and her and Alex were going through and doing all those tests to show that there was this transition. So I feel like Lena is still being very appropriately skeptical because of all the things that she's seen that has been really crazy and unexplainable. She's found, or there is already an answer to this. I think I would have preferred that they made Lena like partly alien as to like magic, because that's what I want. Like if we're going to do this, I would rather there be a scientific explanation, but that's maybe where I'm at. So I really identified with her in that moment. And I was like, yeah, we would all be like, in a huddle, like, or drinking at a bar after something like that. And we'd be like, let's just think about this. If we think about it and if we go into the literature, there's going to be some indication of what's going on. It's going to be fine.
That's a really good defense of Lena, because I think made the case like there are Kryptonian witches on the show. She dealt with them. So that's a good defense of Lena and why she would be sort of still skeptical about that.
I'm just trying to rationalize how like I really need an explanation of something. This is really about me trying to rationalize my behavior as well. But yeah, I tweeted this earlier that I'm also watching Midnight Mass right now on Netflix, and it's a mess. I was like, I feel attacked from every angle. I just want there to be clear answers. I don't need people to like present me with unexplainable circumstances. I just want to go down my research path and that to be it.
I think what's funny is that we just finished Midnight Mass and I could not stop like bothering Mike about the logistics of like the population that they said was on the island. I was like, and every scene I'd be like, well, look at that, Mike. They said there was like 120 people on this island. That's the whole island in that one room. Where's the rest of the people? Or like when they would go into the school, I'd be like, how are there multiple grades on this school with only 100? And I was like, that was the size of our wedding, Mike. I was like, how could there be multiple like school grades? So I understand like just getting caught in the minutia details of like not being able to let things go.
Yes.
Okay,
that's what we do here on Supergirl Radio.
Yes, we excel at that. That's part of what we do. So just for the ignorant like myself, so what is Midnight Mass? Give me like a 30-second rundown on what that is.
Oh, sure. I haven't. Oh, you go ahead. I haven't quite finished it, but I also don't care if there are spoilers. So.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not going to spoil anything. I think that you have to take the ride. So anyway, so Midnight Mass is Mike Flanagan's new horror show. I think it's like 7 or 8 episodes. And he's the same guy who did The Haunting on Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor. And this one is about like, it's a small island that only has like 150, like 20 some people on it. And this new mysterious priest comes to the island and then weird stuff starts happening. And that's kind of like the boilerplate discussion of it. And it goes in directions I didn't really see coming. Like about halfway through, I'm like, oh, that's what's happening. But yeah, we did. There are some like some things where it's like the supernatural stuff cannot really be explained by science, and there's like a doctor character who's like trying to figure it out. So there was a lot of like scientisty kind of characters this week going like, it can't be.
All right, so we're getting a lot of no spoilers for Midnight Mass. So we'll stop talking about it. I just had not heard of it.
It's a great show.
All right, that might be a good thing to watch during the spooky season. All right, so good recommendation there. And Morgan, what did you think about Lena and her continuing to pursue her magical heritage? And even in that scene with Kara, we actually get to see Lena fess up to Kara, like, hey, by the way, I'm a witch. No big deal.
Just FYI, I'm a witch. No biggie. So the first thing I really liked about this storyline, because this storyline's insane, and so I'm just going with it. I'm just flying on a broomstick along with Lena with this storyline because sure. All right, there's sure. I'm still not over a couple of episodes ago when they were in the woods like sniffing branches and doing the Charmed theme song in like 90s outfits with bed wigs. It was quite the introduction to the storyline. It continues to be amazing. I liked that the witch, like Vita, the dumb Kryptonian witch, was like wink. Like every time Lena would look over at her, she'd go like, pew, 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 pew. And Lena's like, no, not me. I don't know anything about this magic you talk about. And Vita's like, oh, or do you? Or are we sisters, kind of, because covens and stuff? And Lena's like, no, please, no, none of this for me. But I do like the storyline of Lena being like a very scientific-minded person, even though she's got these friends who are aliens. Like all the unexplainable supernatural stuff in her life is kind of explained by, an alien has different biology or, physiology. And that's why these people have certain powers. One could make the comment that she already knows about Kryptonian witches because she also experienced season 3. But I mean, did she? I don't know anymore. In this post-crisis reality, she should have remembered Vita, I feel like.
Well, technically, she spent more time with Rain, I guess.
That's true. Okay.
I'm trying to think if she was actually with the Kryptonian witches.
I couldn't remember if she had met any of the witches or if she had been in any scenes with the witches. So I was like, should she know Vita?
She was in the DEO, right, when they attacked? Or maybe she left, like, because there was that scene, right, where Sam was behind the, like, shield that she had built her that, like, contained Kryptonians, right? And, like, the med bay. And they were talking and they were like, oh no, this is when Sam was like reverting back. Her genes were going back to their original programming state. And I feel like right after that, the witches came in and just wreaked havoc. And I don't know where Lena
was it the scene where they were like, don't give this vial of blood or whatever it was. Don't whatever you do, don't give it to those Kryptonian witches. Don't let them take it. And then Supergirl just like threw it to him.
Here you go.
Do you remember that? Yeah. I was like, what are you doing?
I surrender. Maybe that's the moment she should have went back to.
Yeah, that's the one.
Didn't Demos die? Didn't that agent die?
Oh.
Was that fight?
So.
That was sad.
There were a lot of instances like that in the DEO, so I could possibly be making connections there that weren't part of the episode. I'll have to go back and dig through that to watch the end of season 3 again. But maybe she didn't encounter maybe she physically did not encounter the witches.
Yeah, I had some questions because the timeline's so wonky and anything is possible. I was like, did she meet the witches? And if she did meet the witches, did she meet the witches? Like the second question is like, did Crisis make it so, okay, well, we need to do this. We want to do this storyline a certain way. She didn't now. Yay. I don't know. But I do like her search for like, there has to be a scientific explanation. And the witches just keep being like, no. And she's like, no, but there has to be. Like, if you think about it, and the witches were like, magic. And I think that there's something really funny about like seeing someone like Lena try to like rationalize it and figure out like, okay, I'm going to wrap my arms around this. And we're just going to like, I'm going to combine this magic and this science and figure out. And Vita's like, just think real hard and sniff a branch and and you'll have your heart's desire. And it's like, no, this can't be how this works. And I think that that's really, really funny. Is it good storytelling? Who knows? But I do think Lena out of her comfort zone is very funny, and has been really fun to watch, especially in this episode when every time they mention magic, Lena's like, "Who, me? Not me."
Well, at the end, when she's talking to Kara, she does say, "Hey, maybe I can do something to help. I can maybe untether you from Nixley." So I think she's now kind of realizing, okay, if I do have this ability, I guess, maybe I'll use it. So I think by the end of the episode, she's willing to give it a shot. She's willing to give it a try.
Yeah, she's like, "I can un-Voldemort you if that's needed." And Kara's like, "Nah, I'm loving this journey for myself." It reminds me of a book I read one time. Yeah, and I really appreciated that final couch scene because I liked that they didn't drag out like Lena knows she's a witch but doesn't want to tell anybody for like episodes at a time, which is like a thing that this show definitely would have done. And so Lena like learned her lesson from season 5 that like secrets are bad and secrets are no fun. And so she told Kara, she was like, "Hey, gotta tell you this thing, kind of crazy. Turns out I'm a witch." And Kara's like, "Cool. Do you want to watch 90 Day Fiance?" And I just like, after a whole season of every single thing misunderstanding between those two characters being so heightened and like blown out of proportion, to see them kind of have a normal scene where Lena's just like, "Hey, this is a thing. I don't know where it's going, and I'm trying to figure it out, but I think you should know." And Kara to be like, "Okay, cool. Thanks for telling me. No, I wanna have my connection to the villain of the season. I think that'll be fun." That was kind of refreshing to see them just talk to each other like normal people instead of it being like, "You didn't tell me that one thing that one time," and Kara being like, "Yeah, I almost wanted to tell you, but then it turned out everyone would die, but I can't tell you that, so we're still mad." It was nice to see them have a couch scene, honestly, because usually we get the couch scenes between Kara and Alex, and so to get a Kara and Lena couch scene was really fun. And Lena was in her comfy clothes and her sneakies, and like it just seemed like a fun girls' night in.
Yeah, she definitely put her shoes up on the couch, but I guess
Which
that's
is
okay.
rude. But she's been rich for so long, you have to understand that
Yeah,
there are-
she doesn't know that.
when you have that kind of money, there are no rules. You make the rules. So
Who cares? You can just buy a new couch, no big deal.
I like the idea of like of Kara having to like socialize Lena, and being like, "Lena, listen, loving this hangout energy. You need to take your shoes off my couch, though." like, "Oh, I didn't realize that was a thing that you couldn't do."
Just Lena learning about what regular people do.
Kick my feet up on the couch and then buy a new couch.
So we do have some confirmations from the chat about the instance with the witches and the DEO.
Okay, good. I knew somebody would know.
Yeah, so the chat's coming through for us. Leslie says Lena had to go to L Corp. Levi says I think Lena wasn't there, and L Rainbow 3 says it was the DEO when the Rain Witches attacked. Let's see. And Donna says it was when Demos died. Demos died protecting the blood. And then Leslie says Demos was eviscerated by 3 heat vision shots. Yes. So I'm glad we have the confirmation on that. Even if we can't remember, thankfully the chat is always there to come through.
That's why we have this chat now.
Thank you to the live and wired chat for filling us in when we have forgotten. All right. So I guess let's hit overall thoughts so we can get to feedback. So Dr. Nicole Green, what did you think about the Gauntlet? Did you like this episode or did you not like this episode?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought Kara's faces throughout the entire episode were priceless. She was just a constant meme, and I've been seeing that all over Twitter. I thought we got some really nice like Kelly and Alex moments, some like domestic moments now that they're living together. So that was nice that Kelly was in the episode at the same time as Lena, which almost never happens. Oh, I did laugh a lot because there was one segment, I don't know, it may have been a couple minutes where they said courage like every 10 words, if that. And I was like, if this were a drinking game, we would all be dead. So I guess we'll see if that happens in every one of the Totem episodes where it's like, it will just be like, love is a thing that I love as we love each other here today.
Well, I guess you have to beat
humanity.
it. I guess you have to. I mean, I don't know if they get. Well, they can have another word in there. I feel like they could put a synonym in there, but if you have something called the courage totem, it almost makes it inevitable that you're going to say courage with courage totem all the time. So, it drives me nuts.
Courage, courageous, encourage. It was pretty often.
I do like that they've committed so much to like having like a word of the episode that they've basically structured the last, couple episodes of the series around that.
Yeah, that is what the show does. That is how they write these episodes. And I just am gonna have to live with it. So Morgan, what did you think about this episode? Did you come away with it, wanted to rewatch it, or were you like, I'm gonna push that one back into the season?
No, you know what? I'm not putting that one into the void. I don't think I'm not going to put that into that storage unit in the Phantom Zone. I'm gonna keep this one. I thought it was really out there. It was really campy. It was a strange tonal shift after last week, where it was like getting into really dark, heavy topics and really digging into Kelly. Although I do appreciate that they kept Kelly's kind of storyline. They like pulled it through to this episode, which is not always a thing that Supergirl does. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is a wacky episode, and we're not going to deal with that heavy thing we talked about in the last episode. So we did have a little bit of Kelly, and she was still working with Orlando. And so that storyline is still, continuing. They still exist in this world. They are still out there somewhere. Again, not always a given on this show. But I thought that this one was pretty good. I think it's given us the structure for the end of the season, and I don't hate it. The idea of her having to go through these like Gauntlet style challenges that apparently she will have to maybe face some demons and go and do things that are related to whatever the word of the day is. I mean, it's not the worst. I liked, and the Alex and the Jean stuff was really funny. The brainy stuff was funny. So I thought that this one had like a good mix of like kind of emotional stuff, story stuff, and humor. So I like this one.
Yeah, Kara actually got she felt like the lead character who was going through something with the lead villain. So that made me happy. And
especially since they're connected now.
They're connected now. They can feel each other. It's like Elliot and E.T. Ugh, I don't want to think about E.T. It freaks me out. But it's also like Elliot and E.T. if you're into that. But I think my favorite part of this episode was William tells, I think, Nia, it's time I get back on the horse.
I have to admit, I straight up laughed, turned to Mike and yelled, "You heard that, right?" Love that journey for William.
So that's probably not any kind of reference to us, but that really put it over the top for me that they went that extra mile to give me a William is Comet reference. That's how I took it anyway. So thank you, Supergirl writers, for throwing that in. Well, I guess that's going to do it for our discussion. But let's find out what our listeners had to say about the Gauntlet. And Dr. Nicole, I'm going to take you out for feedback, but if you want to hang around, if you have time afterwards and want to do some snap judgments, you're welcome to come back in and do some snap judgments with us at the end. But
sure
we'll take you out for the tweets and the emails to give you a little break, and we'll bring you back in if we see you. So we'll take you out for now, but maybe we'll see you later.
All right. Thanks. Yeah, I'll see you in a bit.
Oh, and I just took ourselves out. Let me actually remove Nicole. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. So let's get to some tweets, Morgan, if you don't mind.
Sure. At Kenny Crayley says, decent episode of Supergirl, some good Supergirl Kara moments. The totem messing up everyone and making them be courageous was interesting yet odd at the same time. Hopefully now the final season story will begin to pick up. Overall, I give this episode a 3.5 out of 5. At Patty Mello 20 said, I love this episode. The humor was on point, the drama was good, and the plot almost made sense. High praise. It was really nice to see Lena and Kara being truly friends and supporting each other in every way. I also love that Lena told Kara about being a witch and didn't keep it a secret. At I Am No Guitar Hero said, hope I make it into the delayed podcast. This was the first episode in a while I've truly enjoyed. Most of season 6 I've sort of convinced myself to watch, so I ended up watching several days later. This one I was drawn in. Still some issues, but it was fun. We need more of that.
Yeah, and you made the podcast. So thanks for submitting the tweet.
At Kaya_Matsui said, can you believe that we had Kara and Lena being real friends for the first time since season 4? I am shook. I like this episode. It was funny, emotional, and it moved the plot along. Was the real test for Kara letting the plane crash? I don't know what to think.
I hope not.
Could you imagine how dark that is?
That's like how she became Supergirl.
Did you consider just letting everyone die?
Jeez.
Oh man, that is dark. At SL Fricky said, decent fun follow-up to last week's more heavy episode. Can Brainy get a bit more respect though and not be the butt of so much humiliation? Being possessed and being beaten up by ordinary people, the man's a legionnaire, for crying out loud. Karate Kid would be ashamed.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not been going great for Brainy. And then he messed up all those calculations.
Brainy is a legionnaire. There should be some respect that comes from that, because he probably did a lot of adventuring and superheroing when he was a legionnaire in the future. So
he just got beaten up by like a couple of like scientists and lab coats. They weren't even like super villains.
Yeah, I'm with SL Fricky. I think he deserves a little more respect.
At Yo Rocky 89 said, I think it was great. Some good in-depth looks into Kara's feelings regarding her courage. I still think she has yet to face her real test. At Valkyrie 88A said, I liked it a lot. The humor was really good. Was Brainy wearing prosthetic hands when he was green? His hands looked really big.
Huh. I'll have to go back and look at that.
I know. The things you notice, I guess, when you're watching. At Laura Redenbaum said, too much William, Lena in sneakers, and then that like thumbs up emoji. At CM Gutierrez 74 said, love this episode, 9 out of 10. No wasted scenes. They progress the storylines for individuals and the group. I was fully engaged in the plot and at the edge of my seat. If all the totem searches are this exciting, the end of season 6 is going to be the bomb. P.S. I even like the William story. Which I realized we didn't talk about, but William got some character development because they remembered that he got shot.
Yeah, they flashed back to him being shot by Miss Dunsbarger.
And of course, they would need to. We're 13 episodes away from him getting shot. And he's like, oh my God, I think that was traumatizing.
Yeah, and he one of my other favorite things about William is that when he was going to start his investigation, I guess, of the Super Friends, and he wrote down Giant Cat and Rankin. Those are his notes.
Yes.
That's I guess you got to start somewhere, but
I also like that Andrea wanted him to be like the person who wrote all the Super Friends like feature articles, but she also wanted him to go deep undercover with organized crime. And I have to say, I don't know how both of those things would be possible. I feel like deep undercover with organized crime would be kind of a time-consuming
you have to commit
project.
to that.
You have to commit to. He'd probably have to start like smoking cigarettes and wearing jean jackets and being tough. I guess my impression of organized crime is just like a gang from
Story?
the 80s. Yeah, he's gonna have to start snapping a lot, working on those dance moves. If he can't pirouette, he's never gonna be a shark.
But now his conclusion by the end of the episode, which is a pretty big thing that William is gonna insert himself into, is that he wants to go meet up with the Super Friends and be part of their team now, is what it sounded like. So I guess we'll see some of that. Yeah, Mia might have accidentally inspired him to do that.
The idea of him being embedded with the Super Friends is so ridiculous that it's almost charming, but I don't think it makes any sense, and I don't know why this is happening. But okay,
what if the horse thing was foreshadowing? What if he does become Comet?
What if it happens?
And that's how he's in with the Super Friends. He just becomes one of them. I'm not getting my hopes up, but
no,
I mean it could have been foreshadowing.
I mean, we're never gonna get Comet on this show.
We're never gonna
be honest. that's too much in the comics and just Supergirl's thing, and so that will never make it on.
And it would also be foreshadowing and be written well if that was the case.
Also, Rebecca, we all know that Comet's gonna show up on Superman and Lois.
Oh, that would be devastating. I'd be like, no, that's Supergirl's thing.
They already got Leslie Lara. They're gonna get Comet
It's
eventually.
definitely gonna happen on Superman and Lois.
Oh man. Okay. So at Major_Dork13 said, loved the episode. It moved the plot lines and was fun, goofy, and made me genuinely laugh. Honestly, these totems may be MacGuffins, but they are definitely working for Supergirl. Everyone got their moment to shine. ... Even William. Also, Lena and Kara had multiple conversations. What? My theory for why Kara failed. She was supposed to come out to the world as Kara Danvers as well. This season is about power, and Kara having a secret identity is her having the privilege of hiding. The show will end with her revealing that to the world on her own terms, not on blackmail. Oh, that's interesting.
That's possible. I suppose.
I did wonder if it had something to do with her secret identity, but I was like, but what?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do that. You could end the show with her saying, "Hey, I'm Kara. I work at Catco. Like, what's her reporter job gonna look like after that?"
I've been covering myself for several years. It is a huge journalistic breach of ethics. I understand that. And then she like kind of turns to William and she goes, "Pew pew!" Like he's like. And that's how it ends. Fade to black.
Honestly, if they did that, I'd be into it. I think that'd be great.
They just like first Iron Man movie, the ending there. She's just like, "It's me, Kara. Sorry, I'm not returning the Pulitzer." And then she just shoots up into the air.
I would
love
be
it.
into that.
At Katie McGraw Book Club says, theory. Lena isn't rich anymore since she stepped away from Luthor Corps. Lex said she'll lose everything. Therefore, she can't afford the $1,000 heels anymore. I hate the shoes on the couch, but now I've adopted the idea that every episode, Lena's shoes get worse. Boardroom or boardwalk?
So should we do a little boardroom or ballroom and talk about some of her new wardrobe?
And now,
Lena Luthor, boardroom or ballroom?
I did neglect to bring some screenshots, so we're just gonna have to go on our memory of Lena's sneakers and her.
I mean, you got the picture behind us, kind of. So
I have a little bit of her more flowy blouse, and so the pants were a little.
I feel like the irony is that like now that she doesn't have her own lab, she's dressing like appropriate for a lab setting. Like she has closed-toed shoes, she has like kind of comfortable clothes. She's like, now that what I kind of want for her, this is what I want for her. It's not what's going to happen, but I want Lena to really lean hard into the witch thing. We know that Lena has this tendency to be like, "Hey guys, now that I'm a super friend, like I'm going to bring I'm going to be the best super friend I possibly can be." And I like stayed up all night, like watching all your battle tapes. And I've got some suggestions and like bringing like a try hard energy that's really off-putting to most people into situations. And so I think that she leans so hard into being a witch. Like I think that the outfits are going to start to get flowier. And like by the end of the season, she's basically going to be dressing like Stevie Nicks. She's going to be, and every time she has to do something, she's just going to start twirling. There's going to be scarves. She's going to be twirling. She's going to be like, "I make my own candles now." She's going to be giving everybody candles and soap that she made herself. And people are going to be like, "Lena, we don't need any more candles." And she's like, "But you always need candles for witchcraft." And like,
so you think the clothes are a reflection of her getting in touch with nature?
Yeah, I think the flowiness of those pants. And, now that she's in sneakers, she's close to the earth,
Yeah.
And I think that this is the beginning of her transition into like a more witchy outfit aesthetic. I think she's poor now and she's going to get a bunch of peasant skirts from like...
What do you think about the hair? She's more curly, crimp style. What do you think? Is she trying to evoke the wig? The Elizabeth Walsh wig?
I think so. I think she looked at a lot of those pictures of her mom and she was like, "What a great wig." And she thought, "I bet I could rock a similar style, but instead of it being kind of on top of my head, it will be my actual hair. And so, but like, I feel like Lena's like, I don't have to be in the boardroom every day. I don't have to be a boss. I don't have to yell at people. I don't have to like pull my hair back in a severe style. I'm going to let it air dry, baby. It's just going to be, I'm going to take a shower and then I'm going to just walk through a field and that's how I'm going to dry my hair. And I like it. I just like the vibes. I think at some point, like she's going to come in, she's going to have like flowers like braided into her hair. No reason at all. She's gonna start really like incorporating like a Ren Fair vibe that nobody
I like that,
feels comfortable with. Like she's just gonna like walk in and she's gonna get more maybe a little bit more theatrical. She walks in like holding like a crystal ball. No one asked for that. No one wants a reading. She keeps asking. No one wants a reading. But she's like, oh, I'm sensing. Like she just sits down next to you and she just starts sensing things about what's going on with you. And then I think Kelly's going to have to talk to her again about reining it in. But I think that's where that's what I want for Lena. That's where I think her fashion is going.
It does seem to be leading us there. So we'll have to track Lena's transition into full witchhood.
She's in a middle ground now because she's still got her sensible vests on, like when she used to do her like little 3-piece suits, and she was like she was like boss Lena. She was boss Lena. Now she took off one layer of that, right? she's down to just the vest, and the pants are so swishy. I feel like the peasant skirts are coming.
And this has been
Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom.
All right, I'm glad we could document that change in Lena's appearance because it has transitioned. She used to, when she was sort of evil Lena, she would have like her hair pulled back and straight.
It's very severe.
Yeah, so there is
nonsense.
Intentionality behind
now it's all nonsense.
All right, well, we have some additional feedback about the season 6 episode titled Blind Spot, so I thought we could get to those first before we get into the Gauntlet. So first up is a message from Tyler Patrick, who is a host of a Krypton Report, the All Things Kryptonian podcast, and a recent guest on Supergirl Radio. And Tyler asked, quote, "Is it odd that it feels like the writers forgot Orlando and Joey are aliens? Why wasn't Orlando using his powers to help the building when it fell?" Unquote. And Tyler also added that there was no mention of them being aliens at the hospital, which would be important for medical treatment. And we also got a similar message from Donna, who sent us a message saying that she got a comment on her spoiler TV review of Blind Spots, so go over there and check it out, bringing up the point that Kelly's argument of Supergirl not caring or not knowing what it was like for the people in the Heights ignores the fact that all the residents of that building were aliens like Supergirl. So just to remind everyone, because I had certainly forgot about that.
Were they all aliens?
I think there were probably some of them, like little Esme, like a lot of the kids in the foster home had the power dampening cuffs. So there were people in the Heights who did have powers. I just want to remind everybody, because I did forget, because a lot of the conversation around Joey and Orlando were about what they looked like and not necessarily where they were from or their actual, I guess, biology. Joey and Orlando are Zeltarians. That's how the closed captioning in the episode Dreamweaver spells it. But the Arrowverse spells it as Zoltarians. So I'm going to go with the closed captioning on this one. Sorry, Arrowverse Wiki, but I think I'm going to go with Zeltarians. And they do have EMP powers. And so my question then is, does that change the conversation between Kelly and Kara a little bit? Because I think it does. I think
it makes you question why that wasn't part of the story, because they've established in season 4 that like aliens, not everybody likes aliens, right? Like aliens are kind of like a mistreated minority in the world of Supergirl. And so you would think that would be kind of, they would maybe bring up the intersection of like their race and them being aliens, and like making that doubly hard on them. And I kind of forgot that they were aliens because it didn't really come up in this one, and it hasn't come up in kind of a while.
It was mentioned in the first episode they were in, and that was
it was mentioned in that episode because he uses his powers to like
to steal things for the warden or the prison system there.
And then Joey had those power dampening cuffs, but it was definitely something that I at this point forgotten about.
I had forgotten it because they didn't touch on it again. I think it could have been a way to, and I know I mentioned this in our blind spots review as well, but I wish they had done more to bring Kara and Kelly together, and I think that would have been a good way to do that, because Kelly could recognize that Kara could speak to the alien side of these people in the Heights, and Kelly could speak to the Black experience, I guess, of the people in the Heights and what they look like. So I don't know. I think it's really weird that I guess the show kind of forgot they were aliens, because they didn't really mention that, and it never came up with in regards to Kara and Supergirl. So I think that's a really big thing that they neglected to mention.
I feel like it was kind of a missed opportunity in like being able to talk about how like intersectionality, right? Like how different identities can intersect with each other. And, they could have brought up how, them being Black and then them being aliens could be like even more hard maybe for Orlando to get jobs because people don't like aliens or something like that. I mean, I think that there were some opportunities with the alien stuff that they kind of didn't get into, and it was already a kind of a packed episode, so I can kind of understand why they may have put that off to the side. But them being aliens was kind of a bigger deal in the prison episode, in their kind of like debut episode, and then since then it hasn't really come into play too much. But it's a great way for Supergirl and Orlando and Joey to kind of interact on that level and to kind of understand each other. So I mean, I think even at one point Kelly says, you were involved in the alien stuff in season 4 because it affected you. But one could argue that maybe this should affect her too, because
yes,
they're aliens.
Yes, that's the whole reason that Kelly went to go see little Joey, is because Orlando was doing that stuff that he didn't want to do, and it was affecting him, which Joey could recognize. So it was based on their EMP powers that they both have. So yeah, that's a huge thing that they neglected to hit on in that episode, which I understand why they did what they did, but that's if you're going storytelling wise with these characters, that's a huge thing to not bring up.
Yeah. So Allie wrote in to say, this is my first time writing in, even though I've listened quite frequently in the past. I wanted to give my 2 cents on blind spots, since I think it was easily the best one of this season so far. I think we have to attribute this to Ozzy helping write the episode and David Ramsey directing it. With this topic of social and racial injustice, which they didn't tackle so successfully in the past, in my opinion, I was scared that this episode wouldn't land very well, but I'm happy to say that it knocked my expectations out of the park. Ozzy was just amazing on and off screen, representing and elevating voices that normally aren't heard, and on Supergirl in the past weren't always shown well. I like the metaphor of the councilwoman zapping all the energy from the people in the Heights, and I found it even better when Kelly was the one to redirect it back to them. All of the emotional talks between the Super Friends and Kelly were long overdue, but landed very well for me. My heart broke for Kelly in the final scene with Alex at home. I hope the writers won't forget these issues once Ozzy isn't the one writing anymore, because I think it's important to show Alex and Kelly's relationship development too. And I will say, it was one of the things I liked about this episode, is that they didn't just sweep the previous episode under the rug, even though, again, tonally a very different episode. But they did have that Alex and Kelly conversation that was kind of continuing the conversation from the episode before, and having Alex really listen to Kelly and ask her, like, do you need me to be there? I can be there if you need me to be there. And having Kelly say, okay, no, I can handle it. I'm going to get down there and do the Guardian thing, and like, you do your stuff, and we can meet up later. And then having actually Guardian come in at the end of the episode and having Alex thank her for showing up, even though she had important stuff to do. I think that kind of shows the development of their relationship, and that they like had a conflict and then talked about it, and then are actively working on it like adults, which is a fun wrinkle on Supergirl, really. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, they did get to have some development in their relationship in this episode this week. Okay, and so Sam wrote in to share some thoughts about the Gauntlet, writing, quote, I just felt the need to write in and say that I think Nixley might be the best story arc-based villain the show has ever had. This surprises me because I didn't find her that compelling when she was first introduced. But over time, I have become more invested in seeing how her story plays out with this latest episode, cementing her as a personal fave. In some ways, the story arc is playing out as a version of what the writers tried to do with Kara and Lena, where Nixley started out as friends with Kara and then became vengeful when she felt Kara had betrayed her. Only this time it's being done well. I think the part of what makes the Nixley story arc so compelling to me is that her goals and motivations are evolving as the season progresses. What she wants and why she wants it are shifting in large part due to her interactions with Kara. Last season, Lena pretty much had the same motivation and goal throughout the majority of her villain arc until she finally came to her senses and was redeemed. I had my reservations about the whole quest for the totem story arc and still do, but I think what they did with the courage totem in this episode was inspired. Having Kara fail the trial and Nixley succeed, only for Kara to remain heroic and Nixley to double down on her villainy, was a stroke of genius. I appreciate the note of ambiguity. Ambiguity.
This usually happens to me, so.
I appreciate the note of ambiguity the episode left us with, questioning what the purpose of the trials were. Why did Kara fail? Why did Nixley double down on her villainy when she passed her trial? Was it because these weren't typical heroic trials that we usually see, where overcoming the trial is part of the hero's journey, but perhaps the opposite? Perhaps they were trials designed for villains to lead them further into the depths of villainy. Maybe it isn't as clear-cut. It could be the case where the lesson a person takes away from passing the trial is a matter of perspective. The lesson Nixley was supposed to learn versus the lesson she took away from it are not necessarily the same thing. I have a theory that Kara's trial was about having the courage to face up to her past self's cowardice rather than try to do things over, but perhaps we'll never know. On the top of Lena and her journey into discovering her magical heritage, there are some interesting ideas, particularly how it conflicts with her ingrained rational science-based ideology and mode of thinking. However, I think the execution is extremely clunky, and it's possibly too late in the day with the series so close to ending to start a storyline like this. If it had been done sooner, it would have had more time to breathe. Honestly, the magic versus science debate / conflict Lena's experiencing could just as easily been religion and faith versus science. There was an episode of Star Trek Voyager, Sacred Ground, where Captain Janeway, who was just as scientifically minded as Lena, had a religious experience that left her questioning her previously unshakable belief in rationality and science as the be-all and end-all of things. Personally, I think the episode did a much better job of showing a closed-minded character opening themselves up to the possibility that there were more things in heaven and earth there than are dreamt of in their philosophy than Supergirl has been doing with Lena during this story arc. In parting, I thought I'd mention that since it began and at various points during the series run, Supergirl has at times reminded me of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. Even more now so with the Nixley and Mitch pairing that brings to mind the numerous villainous duos featured in Lois and Clark over the years. I feel like Mitch is a little underwritten and actually seems a little too smart and capable to be a sidekick when you think he could be running his own show. However, my headcanon is that he has the ability but lacks drive and personal goals. I envision him as a character that attaches himself to other people with ambition because he lacks any of it on his own. He will help other people to achieve their goals and in some ways live vicariously through them, unquote. So great thoughts, Sam. I think sometimes it does resemble Lois and Clark a little bit, and there were some good villainous duos, particularly of the Jeffersons variety. George and Wheezy Jefferson were on as villainous foes in one episode.
Really?
So yeah, so I think he was a version of the Toyman. I think there were two different versions of Toyman, if I remember correctly.
But
But
yes,
yes,
Lois and Clark.
Lois and Clark is the best.
So good.
And yeah, he mentioned Nixley and some of the ways that she might have been a little bit different from Kara. And I thought it was interesting at the end of the episode that Nixley was so frustrated that Kara was happy. She had failed the test, but Kara was still happy. I thought that was interesting.
So we have an email from Emma. Emma says, given the whole magic thing, I'm glad they remembered the Kryptonian witches, but why would Vita be the living memory AI? She was established as the dumb one. Vita possessing Brainy was hilarious. Also, Kara's nonchalance at his possession. I'm offended that Kara's moment of lacking true courage wasn't one of the many, many many times that she should have told Lena she was Supergirl, especially since it was revealed that what the totem wanted was emotional vulnerability. But I guess that might have been too much of a retread of the 100th episode. The Lena and Kara couch scene, it made me so happy. I'm glad Lena told Kara about her magic. I was worried that it was going to be a drawn-out secret. Why do you think Kara didn't pass her trial? If the purpose of the test was for her to be emotionally vulnerable, I don't see where the opportunity for such vulnerability was. Mitch was surprisingly insightful. If he ever decides to leave his life of crime, he could maybe be a decent therapist. Maybe his journey is just to become, is like to bump into Kelly, and then she becomes his mentor.
I could see that happening. The thing with Kara and vulnerability is that Kara already is very vulnerable in a lot of ways. So I don't know how could she be more vulnerable?
She's not like a very closed off character or anything.
She feels a lot of things.
She
does. She talks to people about her feelings, and she even talks about them on camera to millions of people.
She hopes a lot.
So if she has to be more vulnerable, I don't know how that could be the case. And I'm seeing in the chat some people are saying that their tweets didn't get read. If you have them, link them in the chat. We'll read them. They probably got tweeted out before I got a chance to add them to our doc because I was running around a lot today. So if you have tweets you want to get read in the live chat, just put a link in there and we'll read them on the live stream. So Daryl wrote in to say, quote, I'm not liking this fifth dimensional sexism at all. When Nixley showed her vulnerable side, it was the best scene in the episode, but we were robbed of not knowing how Kara would have passed the test. That did seem to bother a lot of people, and rightfully so. Daryl continues on to say, I figured out their biggest fear, and it isn't Nixley or even Lex. It's open and honest communication. When Jean said, this is not your fault, I was so happy someone finally said that to Kara. This Gauntlet storyline is just like the grounding techniques plot. They introduced the grounding techniques plot to use with Kara when they found her in the Phantom Zone, but they never used it with Kara, so it's a storyline everyone else but her is allowed to participate in. In the Gauntlet, we get a great scene where Nixley learns a valuable lesson, but Kara is left out of character growth it could have provided her. And Daryl also says, every time William and Andrea have a scene, I just wonder when he will tell her that Russell was his best friend. Oh, that means he'll have to remember storylines from the past.
Russell. Daryl
says it's not like William is investigating Russell's death anymore. They barely show Kara and Nia as journalists, and I'm supposed to care about William being one? If they do allow William to figure out that Kara is Supergirl, it will upset me that yet another character is able to figure it out while Lena had to be told in the worst way possible. Daryl also says that he loved Jean this week. So encouraging and warm. He really was.
He really was.
Daryl also says, I wish the writers would be more original for once. Lena is yet another character hiding a secret that will just be revealed later on anyway. So both of our main couples are sharing couch time. They can't expect us to see Alex and Kelly sharing couch time and then show Kara and Lena sharing couch time and not expect us to draw a parallel. I just kind of saw it as like, that's what the Danvers sisters do when they're like unwinding. They just sit on a couch. Daryl also says, when Alex got that boost of courage, I was definitely joking around and saying, hey, maybe she'll get that courage to adopt. Where was Kelly this whole episode? She took a page from Lena's book last week and only showed up at the beginning and end of the episode. That was probably due to her pulling double duty in the previous episode. That's what I think probably happened, is they gave her a little time off since she had been working so much. And Daryl ends his email with quote, they aren't even pretending to follow the original rules of Alex's Martian weapon anymore. It was just supposed to become any weapon at first. Now it can become anything they very well please, unquote. I guess it made kind of sense in this episode for helping with the thunderbolt lightning tornado thingy, I guess.
The only rules are that there are no rules for the
I guess there aren't.
Alien thing. What do they call that? Is it called a gauntlet?
It's the hand of the soldier.
Hand of the soldier. That's right.
That Alex's a thing that she wears around her wrist is the hand of the soldier that allows her to create any weapon she wants.
Mike was asking me, I was like, how can Alex do that little bubble thing? And I was like, magic. Her alien thing. I was like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Naomi sent us an email to say, this was one of the very few episodes of Supergirl I was actually interested in and didn't consider it to be a chore. The show actually felt like a comic. For me, to see 6 people dressed as superheroes where they hid their identity by glasses and eyeshadow, it's very difficult to handle real-world situations. The early episode was very difficult to follow because it made me question the whole world building of Supergirl, and the show does not function when you have to question how justice works in their world. In what reality would a news reporter ignore that building crashing down? I like this episode because it didn't take itself seriously, but at the same time let Kara have an emotional connection with the plot. After 12 episodes, we had to wait for Kara to have central parts in the story. I love Kara just being herself, not just being Supergirl who fights villains. I hope Alex gets developments too, but I don't have that much faith.
Well, let's hope so. Alex really hasn't had a story this season.
No, it really doesn't feel like she's had much to do.
She's kind of tied to Kelly, but I don't know. I'm trying to think. I guess she had some of a story at the very beginning when Kara was in the Phantom Zone and she was the big sister trying to get Kara out. But
yeah, since Kara's gotten out of the Phantom Zone, it just feels like I don't know what's up with Alex, really.
She's just kind of there doing stuff. So hopefully later on we'll get to see more Alex. Mark sent us an email to say, quote, "Hey ladies, so the Rubik's Cubes are finally upon us. I have to say the glowing red shards definitely looked pricier than the sacred totems of the Anasazi." Is that correctly pronounced correctly?
I think so, yeah.
The Anasazi that legends seem to have pulled out of the clearance bin at Claire's.
Oh,
Beyond that, and being glad that the episode was about Kara and included a dragon, I only have a few observations. Number 1, Kara's failure of the test of courage. Is it going to be the same test for her every week for each new artifact? Or will we each bring a new flashback from an old episode that until now you couldn't have convinced me that the current showrunners have ever watched? And is Kara going to lose every week to build more suspense? That's a great question.
I don't know.
I hope not. I hope she's not continually failing all throughout the rest of the season. And I also wonder, is it going to be Supergirl, though, that has to do the test every week?
That's a good question.
Because didn't it say, like, the reason that happened was, like, the slingshot was broken in 2, and it was the person who basically broke it that had to go through the gauntlet?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's why she had to do it all by herself without, friends' assistance.
So
that's what Vita said.
So maybe other characters have to go through it.
No, I don't want that.
And they just all fail. I would rather it be Supergirl, but now I'm wondering, does it necessarily always have to be Supergirl according to the rules that they set up? I don't know. Mark's number 2, second point. Do you think that they still have the full set for Kara's loft at this point in the filming, or are we down to just the couch and that wall? Possibly so they could build out Alex and Kelly's apartment. That's a good theory, because right now it seems like all they have is the couch, and it feels like a production of Our Town. Mark's third point. Kara and Lena on the couch at the end of the episode. Granted, they were spaced at opposite ends to serve as an excuse for the producers to claim they weren't trolling certain fans, but still. I suppose they're going with the idea that Alex should be alongside Kelly now instead of hanging out at Kara's. But that's still a slap. That's still a slap on the sisterhood that the show historically featured. Yeah, it's I could maybe buy it that Alex and Kelly need to spend more time with each other, but like Kara and Alex can still have sister couch time. I don't understand why they couldn't.
We get so many Kara and Alex couch scenes. I'm okay if we get a Kara and Lena couch scene. I liked it.
I'm okay with mixing it up. And Mark says for his fourth point, the producer said in an interview that we will eventually find out what Kara's test of courage actually was. Okay, so we will know.
Thank God.
So what do you all think it is? My theory is this. As I remember the pilot, Kara was on a date with a guy who had already excused himself to secretly caveat a super hearing to go call his plan B girl. So I think that Kara's real test of courage is to confront him for dissing her and being a jerk before she takes off to save the plane. Why they've chosen now to go back to a point from the pilot that absolutely no one has ever asked about is beyond me, unquote. You know what? I would be into that if Kara had to like go up to that guy and just really stick it to him. I think that would be a great, courageous thing.
Because it was really uncool.
Yeah.
a listener with an email name of non-existent, so that's mysterious. I like that. Wrote in to share some thoughts. This is what non-existent had to say. I feel like I should read it in like a mysterious voice.
I think you totally should.
Hey, ladies. so mysterious. This is my first time writing in. However, I found you guys in season 4 and fell in love with your funny commentary and silly banter.
Were we funny and silly in season 4?
It was the funniest, silliest season, I think.
I'm glad that non-existent had that experience, but I was trying to remember like what did we laugh about? Maybe the Lex stuff.
I feel like probably.
Yeah.
I'm sure we had some great jokes in season
We
4.
had some good ones in season 4, I'm sure.
Supergirl Radio introduced me to the MPU, or the Morgan Podcast universe. And I actually started watching Legends of Tomorrow because of the podcast. Oh,
Nice.
That's really exciting. I thought that this episode of Supergirl was probably the first good episode in a long while, where the characters were actually acting like themselves. The weird witch lady kind of reminded someone you would meet in a Safeway parking lot, and she would try to sell you her essential oil brands. But it's obvious that she just put her brand sticker on top of the store-bought one. I feel like Vita was really delivering that kind of energy, so I appreciate that really good description of her. I thought the stuff with William came out of nowhere, but he did mention getting back on the horse, which I took as a confirmation that he is Comet. I still haven't given up.
I appreciate that.
Speaking of getting back on the horse, my theory for the reason that we don't see William's girlfriend is because she's actually a horse, and William doesn't want anyone to know, because that will out him as William the super horse.
Wow.
I mean,
I love it.
Can a horse bake like that, though? That's my question. Can a horse bake like an angel? Well, I guess we'll find out. I love that they went back to the pilot episode, but seeing that behind the scenes photos of the actual pilot and then this episode really showed how much better the camera quality budget was. It's brutal. Anyway, I thought this episode was hilarious, but I'm not getting my hopes up for the rest of the season, because for a show all about hope, it's really good at crushing mine. 8.3 out of 10. Thank you, ladies, for doing what you do. You make those boring work days so much brighter, and I probably would have quit the show by now if it weren't for that darn Hope voice. And then 2 emoji hearts, or as Hope would say, emoji heart. Emoji heart.
I haven't done that in a while. I'm glad you could pull that out.
It's been a while. I miss Hope so much. That's the one. If I could take one thing from season 5 and bring it into our current season, and it would really only be one thing, it would be Hope. I miss Hope.
Yeah. So I think and Anthony, I'm sorry I can't find the tweet that you sent us, but I did find Jen's at Jen_MCF3 says Papa Bear Jean saying how great it was watching Kara and Alex grow into strong women brought tears to my eyes. On the topic of Kara failing her gauntlet, did she need to have the courage to let Alex's plane crash and the courage to possibly live without her sister? So some people are saying that maybe Kara should have let him crash. Just let the whole plane full of people crash.
How is that courageous, though? Like, why would that be courageous?
I guess for Nixley, when she was supposed to kill her brother, she needed that courage to be vulnerable with him, like to tell her how she felt about him.
Maybe she should have,
but she never killed him.
The plane was crashing, maybe she should have, as she was like holding it up, she should have been like, Alex, you're a great big sister, and I just want you to know that, or something. Like, you are the best. Alex is like, please just save the plane. We could talk about this later.
Yeah, I hope that's not it. So Nicole, though, in the chat said, what if the Hope Totem is Tabletop Hope?
Gasp.
I mean,
and it's Supergirl's ultimate battle.
And I think they mentioned that like the totem had cultural influence, like it had been part of the culture. I mean, it has influenced our culture here on Supergirl Radio.
It is certainly part of our culture.
So I think that is very possible. Well, Anthony, if you find your tweet before the end of the live stream, we'll read it on the live stream. But
Ticking clock.
let us know. You have until the
No
end of the
pressure.
live stream to get that tweet in. But for right now, though, I think we need to make some snap judgments. In the game of snap judgments, each person is presented with 2 options, but must only choose one. First instincts are recommended, and explanations are unnecessary. All right, everybody in the chat can play too, and we'll bring Dr. Nicole back on for some snap judgments. And so, Morgan, if you will do the honors.
Of course. So our first set of snap judgments are from at Kaya_Matsui. Would you rather have the courage to be emotionally vulnerable to people or the courage to enter a burning building without thinking?
Dr. Nicole, what is your choice?
I think I want to be emotionally vulnerable because it might feel like I'm dying, but I won't actually be dying as I run into a burning building.
Yeah, I'm going to choose that emotional vulnerability because I don't want to run into a burning building is the thing. Call me crazy, but I'd rather just be like, listen, I think we need to talk about our feelings. Like that seems less risky to me, which is a very courageous thing to say.
Well, since I'm not a cold-hearted witch, I guess, I think I'm going to have to choose the courage to enter a burning building without thinking, because I think I'm already, for the most part, emotionally vulnerable. I tend to cry a lot with people. I get very emotional when I'm talking about something that's very impactful for me. So I do tend to tear up. So I don't think I have trouble with emotional vulnerability. So I guess I would have to give entering a burning building without thinking a shot. Hopefully that means that I have the courage, but if you have the courage, you could be running in unprotected, though.
Do you have abilities? Do you have ability? They didn't say that.
No, and there's no guarantee that you won't be like, because you could be like them in the episode this week, is that they have all the courage, but they're putting themselves in danger. You know what? I'm just gonna take a shot. I'm just gonna do it. Maybe I'm gonna go in there and save somebody. I'm gonna put myself out there. I'm gonna save somebody from a burning building, and maybe I'll die in the process. But you know what? It'd be a great story. I'll be into it.
That's very courageous.
Yeah, I mean, you could find out that you too have a bloodline of witches, and you'll be fine.
Maybe, yeah. I'll just lean into that.
Sure. Okay. Would you rather be a Kryptonian witch or a 5th dimensional imp?
Do I get to go first?
Yeah,
Nicole,
go first.
Fifth dimensional imp for sure. They seem really fun.
I'm also going to go 5th dimensional imp, mostly for the outfits. I got to say, I was really vibing with what Nixley was wearing. If I can get one of those, like, give me that.
The only downside to the 5th dimensional imp is that you do have the weakness of getting tricked into saying your name backwards, and that does send you back. But 5th dimensional imps are a lot more fun. Kryptonian witches are like the world destroying. They're real downers. So I guess I'm gonna go 5th dimensional imp just because they're quirkier and happier and fun.
Yeah, they're a little bit more of a party, I think. A little bit more of a party vibe. Okay. What was your favorite? The giant cat or the new dragon?
Dr. Nicole.
Was it a new dragon? It was a reemergence of Spike, right?
I think it was a little different because Spike was an actual like lizard
Komodo dragon, right?
Oh, that's true.
Who belonged to that little girl.
I think this guy was an iguana.
Unless they took that same Spike the dragon from that little girl, and that woman is just like walking around with it in the museum.
Spike, what are you doing here? Maybe that's why he was so angry. He was like, I've been stolen.
They've taken me for research.
Why won't anyone listen to me?
I think it was a different
so.
iguana. Yeah, I think it was a different.
Okay. Well, if I can't know it was Spike, who I feel like I've made an emotional attachment to, I'm gonna go with the cat.
Yeah, I feel like I have to go with the cat, or else it would be a betrayal to Beaker and Bunsen. So I gotta go cat.
I'm gonna go cat. I love dragons, but that giant cat with the heat vision, though, that was pretty awesome.
Okay, our next set of snap judgments are from at I Am No Guitar Hero. Possessed brainy or overeager space dad? Nicole.
What is this, like, who we want
I guess
to hang out
who
with?
you like
Yeah.
or yeah, let's do it that way. Who would you rather hang out with?
Oh, definitely super positive space dad. Like, I would hire David Harewood to hang out with me for even an hour just to, like, hype me up all day long. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
me too. Like, and I would want him to just hang out with me while I'm doing something that's like not important at all. Like I'm like folding laundry, and he's like, "You're doing so good. You put that off for 3 weeks, but now you're doing it." And I'm like, "I am doing it. It was hard." And like that's the kind of energy I want in my life.
I'm going possessed brainy. I would have so much fun with that. I would just sit down and have conversations with possessed brainy. Just ask him all kinds of questions and hear how he would respond. I would be into that.
Okay, our next snap judgment. Would you rather A, the show forgets to tell us why Kara failed her test, season 6 version of Space Dad's terrible secret, but obviously a plot hole, or B, we find out later in the season, but it is an underwhelming, illogical, or blah reason? Nicole, what are you thinking?
I think B is an entirely possible option. So I think I'd just rather not know and just move on. Like, I don't know.
Just let it remain a mystery. Just kind of percolate in it. Oh, that's tough because being underwhelming, it does seem very possible. On the other hand, if I never find out, it could be anything like Jean's terrible secret, which we know is terrible and shocking. So I'm gonna go never find out.
Yeah, I think I would be really mad by the end if we did find out and it was underwhelming, illogical, or blah. So I would rather just move on, forget it, and I'll just be like, oh, the show forgot about it. So I think that would be my preferred outcome.
Okay, better reoccurring side character, Spike the Dragon or Brian the Alien. Note, by the way, I would love to see Brian show up once more, maybe busking outside the Alex Kelly wedding ceremony.
Yeah, I
Nicole,
think didn't you guys have this debate like many episodes ago where like what happened to Brian? He was like
no.
He was always just kind of around and then we never heard from him again.
I think Brian's in the clink, honestly.
Brian, he's definitely in the clink. He was also more of a Sandvers shipper. So I don't know would he show up at the Alex and Kelly wedding? I don't know.
Maybe he would show up, but to like that part where it's like if anyone has any,
yes, that's what I want.
Or forever hold your peace, and Brian's like, I object. And then he has a printout of his Sandvers fan fiction. It's like several reams of paper, and he is like in this coffee shop AU, and there's like no one wants to hear about your fan fiction, Brian. Sit down.
That is the exact scenario. I want that scenario.
I'm going to say Spike the Dragon. I love Brian, but Spike the Dragon is the best.
I feel like I got to go Brian just out of loyalty. Like I miss him. What's up? What's he up to? Maybe we'll find out. Probably never. Our next set of snap judgments are from Mark. Which one of these two ridiculous, unnecessary, and totally unwanted plots would you want to see happen between now and the end of the season, given that one of them has to happen? So choosing one because the other is worse is totally fair. Okay, so this is a lot. Mark went into like a total Anna territory.
Total Anna vibe.
Yeah.
So let's strap in. Here's plot A. Kara and Alex get into a fight over a totally stupid misunderstanding and refuse to speak to each other for the rest of the series.
No.
The plot only resolves in the finale when circumstances force them to work together. But even then, the most we get is some half smiles from one to the other rather than a true reconciliation. And the series ends with their sisterhood in an unsettled, ambiguous state. Or B, with 6 episodes to go, a pod crash lands in the national city.
I already don't like it.
And in it is Kara's 10-year-old cousin, Oliver L.
No.
Sent to her by her unknown uncle, Bor-El, from Argo City for her to take care of because the aunt and uncle are going on a kidless vacation. For the rest of the series, Kara has to juggle tracking down Nixley and fighting any other baddies that pop up with babysitting a tween who is all about getting into childish mischief with his superpowers and endlessly quoting his new favorite Earth show, Teen Titans Go.
Okay, option B took a turn that sounds really fun. Like I'm into it. They're watching Teen Titans Go. Kara's getting to babysit somebody. I would be into that. So I guess if we're choosing the one that we don't want,
We're
or
choosing
one
the
that
one
we
that-
want,
that we'd
we
have
do
to
want to
that
see.
we pick. Yeah.
B all the way for me. Car has to juggle tracking down Nixley and fighting other baddies that pop up with a babysitting a tween. Yes, 100%. I'm picking that one. I'll deal with the pod if I have to. If it gets me Kara babysitting a tween while she's fighting baddies.
There's an extra bonus for B. It's that if the parents decide to never come back for the kid, then guess what? Alex finally gets to adopt. So I'm going B too.
Yeah, A is horrible. It also sounds like just a worse version of what actually happened between Kara and Lena, except it would be
Definitely is.
and like in season 5, like if season 5 had just ended, that would have been what had happened between them essentially. So yeah, definitely B. It sounds like a kid fic. I would read it.
I don't like the Oliver L though. Is that a reference to Oliver Queen?
It's gotta be.
It does take it down a little bit, but I'll just move on and ignore it.
Okay, new Rachel at RachelJoy23 sent us a snap judgment. Brainy possessed by the spider alien in season 5, or Brainy possessed by Vita in this week's episode, The Gauntlet. Nicole, what do you think?
Wait, remind me the spider. What was the spider in season 5?
There was like a spider lady in one of the episodes. Do you remember? And it like sort of like took him over.
Was that season 5?
Apparently.
God, did she have the tattoos? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
That does feel like much longer.
That had to have been
ago.
longer
I feel like
ago,
it was
right?
season 4, but maybe I don't know. Season 5.
But season 5
forever.
was legitimately a long time ago now.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go Vita possess Brainy. That's a lot of hijinks and shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Vita possess Brainy. That's way more fun.
I like when Vita like touched the two things like that's on his outfit and are like, are these the nipples? So yeah, I like the chaotic energy of Vita possess Brainy. Okay.
And I just before we move on, Mark clarified that the Oliver L was a reference to cousin Oliver on the Brady Bunch, who just like showed up and kind of took over the show. So thank you for that clarification.
Okay. So our next snap judgment is from Emma. If you were a superhero, supervillain, who would you rather have as your sidekick? Esme or Hope? A tabletop version or Eve version, your choice. Hope, helpfully obliging people enslaver, or Eliminator if the person is Supergirl.
She definitely would try to kill Supergirl.
So do we want an adorable alien child who believes in guardian angels as our sidekick, or do we want a murderous tabletop AI?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with a murderous tabletop AI. I prefer the tabletop form of Hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also will agree. Tabletop version of Hope the AI, and definitely, even if she's murderous, like she's gonna get stuff done, I think.
I mean, I'm clearly picking Hope. There was never any question. But I like tabletop version too, because I feel like she's more portable. Like you could put her in a bag and then bring her out. She'll destroy your enemies. Then you put her back in the bag. It's simple. Plus you could probably like do home automation and like control your whole home. You're like, Hope, it's a little hot in here. And she's like, I will lower the temperature and kill Supergirl. And you're like, cool. I only asked for one of those things. So the other's a bonus. Okay. Who is a better Danvers sister mentor? Kat Grant to Kara Supergirl or Jean to Alex?
Ooh, but Jean's also been a mentor to Kara. So he's pulling double duty and he's always been around. I love Kat, but I think Space Dad has been the better. He's been an actual father figure.
Yeah. Rebecca, what do you think?
I want to say Kat, but really, did Kat mentor Kara at all? Like, Kat left and Kara never goes to work. I don't think Kat really did her job.
She mentored Kara just a little bit better than Kara mentored Nia. So,
so I'm probably going to say Jean and Alex on this one.
Yeah, I gotta go with that. I gotta go with Space Dad. He's still around. He didn't go flaunt off somewhere else. He's still involved in their lives, and gosh, he's so proud of them. So, gotta go Space Dad. Okay, who would you want as your fairy godparent? Mixie, Nixley, or Witch Lena?
Oh man,
Yeah, this is a tough one.
I haven't seen Witch Lena in full. I can't make that decision. Also, I need her to hold on to her scientific side. I'm gonna pick Nixley, just because I feel like the outfits would be really good.
They would be so good.
So many good jackets.
That's what. Yeah, I'm gonna go. It's tough to ever vote against Lena, and by the time she gets to her full witch powers and she's got those peasant skirts going, it's gonna be on. But right now in our journey, I think I'm gonna go Mixie, because I feel like he's gonna be like mischievous, like he's gonna grant your wish, but in like a really fun way that might end up being eventually unpleasant, but will start as fun. So I'm gonna, and he's a little bit less crazy than Nixley is right now. He's a little bit more fun. He's gonna sing you a song of exposition. I like it.
Yeah, Mixie, I think, is going to actually try to do something for you, whereas Nixley is just going to try to take over the world. So I don't think she's going to really focus on you. I think she's going to be real selfish in that regard. So I'm going to go Mixie on that one.
Okay, so our last set of snap judgments are from Anna. So first off, we start with a note from Anna. She said, I have 4 snaps because this episode was so good. Snap number 4 is my favorite of them.
Oh,
so
I can't wait
keep
to
that
get
in
snap
mind
number 4
as we get down. Okay, number 1. let's all get ready. Who would you rather have as a partner for a major project for your job? Nixley's assistant, Mitch, who also doubles as a therapist, or the scientist, Dr. Lar, who will attack any man who dares not give you grant money? I think this is a good question for Nicole.
This is a clear winner for me. I want an aggressive science mind on my team, so I'm going Dr. Lar all the way.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think I'm gonna go Mitch, because sometimes I'm having a tough day. I just want somebody to be like, let's just get into what this is really about. And Mitch is like, did you ever consider that it's your inner child that is hurting? And Nixley was like, shit. So I'm gonna go Mitch.
I'm gonna go Dr. Lar on this one, because I need people around me who are gonna get stuff done, and I feel like she probably would go after people until stuff got done. So Dr. Lar for me.
Okay, number 2. What part of the episode did I, Anna, love the most?
Okay, we're putting ourselves in Anna's shoes.
Okay, so now we are Anna. Nixley's speech to her brother, where she cried over her feelings about his betrayal, or Dr. Lar finding the courage to attack multiple men and start a dangerous lightning storm, or the look on Kara's face each time she was told she failed the courage test.
Oh. So which one of these was the most? I was going to say Nixley because that was really dramatic, but then she talked about Kara's disappointed face and how terrible she felt about herself. So I'm going to say that really fed Anna in those moments where Kara was being sad at her failure.
Yeah, this is a tough one, because I think it's got to be between Nixley and Kara, but I'm going to give it a little bonus points to Nixley because of the absolute drama of that moment. Not just the emotional speech, but that outfit says drama all the way. I think Anna's going with a touch more drama to her tragedy.
Anna does love a betrayal.
She does love a good betrayal. We know Rebecca and I know that well.
So I'm going to go with Nixley and the betrayal there.
Okay. Number 3. What would you rather have to do? Face an emotionally grueling Gauntlet test of courage in order to save the world, or have flashbacks to being shot anytime your boss gives you a work assignment? That one's tough.
What was the first one again?
Okay. Would you rather face an emotionally grueling Gauntlet test of courage in order to save the world, or have flashbacks of being shot anytime your boss gives you a work assignment?
I get a lot of assignments, so I guess I'll just continue. I mean, science isn't an emotionally grueling journey every day, so that seems like just par for the course. Let's do Let's do the first one.
Yeah, I think I'm running that gauntlet. I don't have time to be like flashing back to getting shot like every time I have to do something at work. I'll never get anything done.
Having to do the gauntlet test to save the world, though, sounds like a lot of responsibility
It is, yes.
that I don't know that I want to have. So I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna suck it up. I'll just have the flashbacks every time. I do have a lot of things to do, but I'll just work through it. That way, at least I'm only having to deal with myself, and I'm not having to save the world. So I think I'm gonna be lazy on this one.
Nice. Okay. So now there's a disclaimer for snap number 4. Always a good sign. Anna says, disclaimer for snap number 4. This snap is not meant to hurt or displease anyone who does not like the idea of romantic Kara and Lena. I just like asking angsty snaps, and the romance can be angsty. Okay, 4, getting right in. What was the most likely way Kara could have passed the courage test? Kara needed to let Alex die and lose the sister she has always loved, relied on, and trusted, and face the overbearing pain of being truly alone and vulnerable. Or Kara had to turn to her date before she saves the plane and admit to herself, him, and the gauntlet that she only goes on dates with men to please others, and she needs to embrace who she actually wants, Lena. Now, I have one small critique of this snap judgment. Solid, Anna, solid. At the time, she didn't know Lena. So it would truly be a soulmate situation if she was like, listen, there's going to be this rich girl and she's going to come and she's just going to like change everything. But I've got like a year and a half for that to happen, but you're still not doing it for me. But
I think the last time I was on here did a Super Corp or Agent Corp snap judgment.
We might have.
So this keeps happening when I'm on snap judgments. Do I want to see Alex traumatized? In no way. Do I have any reservations about romantic entanglements between Kara and Lena? No, like live your life. So I'm going with scenario 2.
Yeah, I don't want to see anything bad happen to Alex. And I like the idea of Kara and Lena together. This would be a little bit of a twist considering that she didn't know Lena. But I mean, if she had maybe bumped into her in a coffee shop and was like, ooh, who's that? Yeah, I buy it. So I'm going scenario 2 as well.
Well, but the question is what's the most likely what was most likely the way Kara could have passed the courage test?
I'm still going 2 because I don't want Alex to die.
But well, I mean, I don't either. But Kara, like losing Alex would make her the most vulnerable, I think. So I might say number 1, just because she would be in her mind truly alone, and she would have had to lose the person who meant the most to her over her course of the time on Earth. So what was the most likely I don't know why I'm thinking about this so hard.
It's a tough one. It's a real thinker that Anna's laid out before us.
But I think that would really make Kara very vulnerable. So I'm the most vulnerable, I guess. So I'm gonna go with option number 1.
Okay.
Is it vulnerable in a good way or in a bad way?
That's another question.
I think it could be either. I think they just have to be vulnerable. So
interesting.
Make of that what you will. Because vulnerable for Nixley was a negative.
Yeah.
It was like her, she was honest with her brother, right?
Well, she was, but I guess it was a more positive thing for her.
Because she
I feel like
him.
She got out her feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it could go either way. So make of that snap judgment what you will. Thank you to everybody who sent in snap judgments because we had a lot this week. And thank you to Dr. Nicole Green for playing along. And we'll be kicking you out of the live stream. But thank you for being with us tonight. And we will be right back. No judgments on your snap judgments. Boy, that last snap judgment, so difficult.
Yeah, that was a puzzler. That was a thinker, really.
Really, really, really hard to think about. Okay, that is going to do it for this episode of the Supergirl Season 6 episode review titled The Gauntlet. But before we go, we need to get to some Supergirl Radio and some DC plugs so that you will know kind of keep in touch with us. If you would like to contact Supergirl Radio, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can call us at 678-718-7252. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Podchaser, and Spotify, where we also have a Spotify playlist that includes music featured on and inspired by the CW's Supergirl TV series. We are listed on DC's fan page, which you can find at dccomics.com/DC-fans. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our Supergirl Radio live streams, make sure to subscribe to the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to get notified when we go live and wired. DC TV Podcast also has a TeePublic store, so if you're in need of new DC TV related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, onesies, mugs, notebooks, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
Supergirl Radio, Superman and Lois Radio, The Flash Podcast, and Legends of Tomorrow Podcast, Blacklight and Podcast, Batwoman Podcast 2, and Titans and Doom Patrol Podcast just for you, Justice League Dark Podcast, Green Lantern Podcast, Stargirl Podcast, Strange Adventures Podcast, and finally my favorite of the bunch, DC TV After Dark, where you're allowed to say fuck.
And speaking of the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store, we've got Lena Luthor mugs in the store. We have yet to get Lena Luthor witchy woman mugs, but I mean, I'm throwing it out there into the universe. Lena, peasant skirt, like scarves, so many scarves, maybe a crystal ball in her hand. It just says witchy woman over it. And listen, it's spooky season, and I would wear that, is all I'm saying.
Well, we could make that ourselves and put it up in the TeePublic store. So put down all your ideas for witchy Lena designs, and we will try to implement them. And we would like to thank our Legion of Super Sponsors who are supporting Supergirl Radio through our Supergirl Radio Patreon. These people are Michael, Sam, Anne-Marie, Grout, Yvonne, Quinn, Jessica, Nicola, Leslie, Susan, Abby, Irmgard, Miriam, Cherie, Donna, Nicole, Lizeth, Deb, Ziwang, Xiao, and Anna. So thank you all for supporting the podcast in the ways that you do. You can do that by going to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. We have 4 monthly levels if you would like to support us. And we just give you extra bonus stuff from Supergirl Radio. We need to do our next quarterly review, I think, is coming up. And I may force Morgan to watch a Green Lantern animated film. Or maybe the Green Lantern live action film. Either way, it's going to be Green Lantern related.
So I might be okay with the Green Lantern live action film because A, I'm gonna know it's bad, and B, I do love Ryan Reynolds, but my girl Blake Lively is in that movie. And I at one point when it was released, I was like, I need to go see that, support Blake Lively, Gossip Girl forever. But then I was like, nah, I'm okay. So, I mean, I will be coming into it without having seen it before.
Okay.
But I feel like I did out myself on the Patreon as being not that into Green Lantern.
So from here on out with the Patreon, it's just gonna be Green Lantern all the time. Just
Green Lantern Radio.
Just to really torment Morgan about her just not being into Green Lantern all that much.
Maybe he'll convince me. Maybe I'll watch something and be like, finally, I get Green Lantern. Like I've unlocked it. But no, I don't care for Green Lantern. You're gonna get some angry emails or like, excuse me. As a reminder, we're still running our Flat Supergirl photography contest. So to enter, you download and print the Flat Supergirl image, which you can find in the video description of this live stream, in the show notes of the audio podcast, or at the right-hand side of supergirlradio.com. Then you cut out Flat Supergirl and you attach her with tape or glue to a popsicle stick, a pen, or a pencil. And now here's where your imagination, your creativity can go wild. We just need you to take a creative picture with Flat Supergirl. Now, it can be a selfie, but it doesn't have to be. It's a great season for a Flat Supergirl picture because there's so many fun fall activities for you to do. Do you have a local pumpkin patch? Do you want to pick some apples with Flat Supergirl? Did you already pick some apples? Do you want to bake a pie? Do you think that Flat Supergirl can help you bake that pie? She knows lots of recipes. She knows lots of ask her. She'll whisper them to you. It's going to turn out to be like a creepy Annabelle situation with your Flat Supergirl. And I'm sorry if your Flat Supergirl is haunted. Our disclaimer is that is not our responsibility, and we're sorry about that. Okay, sorry if your Flat Supergirl is haunted. Supergirl Radio takes no responsibility. But if she's not haunted, take pictures with her and make sure that you share them on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Use #at Supergirl Radio and use the hashtag Supergirl Adventures. Good luck to you.
I didn't think my Flat Supergirl was haunted, but now I need to be careful.
Never know. You just never know.
Now I need to be concerned about it. So
if you start hearing her whispering things to you, I think that's when you need to start being concerned.
That's
a bad sign.
Point. Okay, all right. So good to know. All right. Well, you can find me on Instagram at the Derby Kid. I guess I'm gonna put my stuff up. And you can also subscribe to my personal YouTube channel at youtube.com/duckmilkprod. I'm still going through the Rotten Tomatoes top critics Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice reviews. So this next week, this upcoming Sunday, we're going to be going through, we actually won't be going through a review because when I went to revisit the review, I clicked on it and it said it had a press release kind of a thing on there that said that the reviewer actually got fired from that outlet because he plagiarized other people's work. So just as a reminder, that is a top critic from Rotten Tomatoes. So we're going to be talking about that and the implications of those kinds of things. So we won't actually have a review to review, but that was an interesting develop for me. So it's a good thing that I waited 5 years to do this series so I could have this as a good example. So that's really interesting. So we're going to be looking at that disgraced reviewer from the Star Tribune who did write. I did have a little bit of let's see. I wrote down he wrote some film reviews using the same unique language of writers of other publications without attribution. So that is a thing that happened. So not great when you're an actual reviewer. So that's the kind of quality you're getting from Rotten Tomatoes.
Why would you plagiarize a film review? It's your opinion. You don't have an opinion?
I guess not. I guess you just got to take that quick and easy route.
There's not a right and wrong there. Like, what did you think of the movie?
I don't know. Don't ask me. But somehow they got
that person forgot to hand in the assignment and was just like copy paste.
Yeah, so that is that's interesting how this person got labeled a top critic on Rotten Tomatoes. Also on Friday, October 1st at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'll be finishing up a live audio commentary of Zack Snyder's Justice League where you'll actually get to hear our opinions, not stolen from other people, but our opinions. So I'll be doing that with Andy Babak of the Flash podcast and the Doom Patrol Titans podcast, that right here on the DCTV podcast YouTube channel, youtube.com/DCTV podcast. We actually last week did audio commentary for chapters 1 through 3 previously, and we'll be doing chapters 4 through 6 on October 1st at 7 p.m. Eastern. So just to break it up, it's kind of a long movie. So we're going to break it up and do the audio commentary that way.
Cool. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Mojotastic. And you can also find me as a co-host on the Legends of Tomorrow podcast, where we are going to be doing our season 6 wrap up before season 7 starts in like a day or so.
What?
Season 7 is starting in like 3 weeks, which is rude. It's so rude. I didn't even have a chance to miss Legends of Tomorrow, and here it is. It's back again. But we usually go through the previous season and give it like a Harry Potter OWL rating system, something Supergirl would appreciate, as they stole the Dementors from Harry Potter, and now Supergirl and Nixley have sort of a Voldemort Harry thing going on. So clearly they're familiar with the books. And so are we. So we're going to go through and give our rating system for the Legends of Tomorrow season 6 episode. So if you've been watching Legends, or if you want to catch up before season 7, in the 1 hour you have between those seasons, might be a good catch-up episode to brush yourself up on the last season that you literally just stopped watching. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And as a word of advice, maybe think twice before you try and reason with a dragon.
I think the CW are just trying to win the time slot war with Supergirl Radio.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Oh no.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!